News.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sussex's Netflix series launches this morning amid a storm of controversy.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new Netflix docu-series premieres at 8 a.m. this morning. Trailers promise the inside story of how the Sussexes stepped away from their royal duties, with Harry referring to a dirty game.
And Border Force staff at major airports, including Heathrow, have announced they're going to strike from December the 23rd. The walkouts threaten Christmas holidays, with airports being told to cancel 30% of flights on strike days.
The first coal mine in the UK in decades has been approved. The government says the decision is consistent with their policies on cutting carbon emissions, but environmental campaigners say it would undermine climate targets.
And the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, no surprise there, has announced he'll not be standing in the next general election. It follows comments from members of his local party. He wasn't fit to represent them after his stint on I'm a Celebrity.
Well, there's plenty to get you going there this morning. Let us know your thoughts on all of those topics or the rest of the day's news via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Don't forget, we want to know where you're watching and listening from. So you can see our top story this morning. Harry and Meghan's new Netflix series premieres today amid continued controversy, with 3 episodes being released at 8 a.m.
Well, the trailer promises to reveal a war against Meghan and show the true story of why the Sussexes stepped back from their royal duties.
Well, the docu-series forms part of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's £88 million deal with Netflix. Joining us now is royal and showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield, who joins us from LA. Good morning to you, Kinsey. Look, we don't know what's going to be in these 3 that drop at 8 o'clock, but we can predict, can't we, that they will be trashing the royal family.
Absolutely.
And the criticism is, and I've heard those questions being shouted at the couple when they were in New York receiving that award, that they're trashing the royal family for money.
Isabel, you know what I was just thinking, too? I don't think that American media would ever put the Prince and Princess of Wales in that position. Just watching the way that reporters didn't hesitate to ask, a really polarizing question to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, I do not think that American media would have the audacity to be so blunt to the Prince and Princess of Wales. And I think that tells us a lot about the Americans and their opinions of Harry and Meghan. I think that not only does the media not respect them, but I think the audience does not respect them. I spoke with you a little bit in private, and I said we were not given access to screeners as media here in Hollywood. Normally, these big premieres drop at midnight because they want to make sure that all eyes are on these premieres. If you know, think back on Stranger Things and some of their really popular shows like You on Netflix. Those premiere at midnight because they want to have the biggest screening numbers that they can possibly report. And in this particular instance, I think that they know all eyes are going to be on the Sussexes, fans or not fans, and they know that they don't have to do that midnight premiere. They're in control. They can drop it at 8 a.m.
Kinsey, they didn't answer the question, did they, when they were asked, are you putting money before your family?
Well, never complain, never explain when it's convenient to you, right? They'll accept that if as long as it puts them in a comfortable position versus an uncomfortable position. But I think that Harry knows exactly what he's doing, and that the public perception is that he's turning his back on the people that gave him the platform that he has now.
Well, Kinsey, he promised his grandmother that he would never trash her legacy. It's 3 months to the day since she passed away. Do you think that he will keep that promise?
Isabel, I really struggle there because I don't. I think that Queen Elizabeth was the leader. She was the head of the family. She's the head of the institution. When you trash the institution, you're trashing their leader. And ultimately, I do think that he's going to say things that hurt the family and hurt her legacy.
She said when the agreement was done with the Queen that they were going to walk away. Do you remember they were going to go to the United States to be private people? Not very private, are they? But they actually said they would, quote, continue to uphold the values of Her Majesty. Her Majesty never, ever got down and dirty in a 6-part Netflix documentary, did she?
Absolutely not. And also keep in mind, they told us during the Oprah Winfrey interview that they were done, that they just wanted to clear the table. They just wanted to put all of this out there and they were going to be done with it. But that's not the case. Now we have at least 6 hours of content where they're going to rehash all of the drama over Megxit. And I also think I'm really concerned that he's going to trash his country. I just don't know how you can criticize your experiences and not hurt the people of the UK. I don't understand how you can do that.
Kinsey, just lastly, just from the papers, we're being told that the Prince of Wales and indeed his father, the King, won't be watching, but that their aides are braced to respond robustly because they're expecting, frankly, allegations to be made.
Yes, but I'm also hearing that they really wonder what possibly could be said that hasn't already been said. They're kind of looking at each other going, what big revelations can be made? Because everything's out there on the table. Will they respond if something is said that's untrue? I do think that they'll find a way to, whether that's going to a reporter that they're comfortable with and whispering something in their ear, hey, go check out this conflict or contradiction. But I really don't know if they have any big bombshells. I mean, Isabel, they haven't shut up in the last 2 years. What's left to be said?
Well, there's the book as well. Don't forget that. They've got to hold something back for the book Spare, which is coming out. When's that? January. Yeah. Well, it's never going to go away, Kinsey. Unfortunately, we have to let you go for now. I know we'll be catching up with you throughout the programme, talking about this doubtless over the next few weeks as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's funny, I was chatting to my husband about this last night, and obviously we have to all watch this, don't we, for our job? But he was saying, I will not be feeding the monster. Yeah,
that's exactly what my partner's saying. Not watching it under any circumstances. I know you'll bore me to death with bits and pieces about it, but he doesn't want to watch it because it's worked out in his head that if he watches somehow, that could...
Well, it makes them money because they're seen to be popular and whatever.
Exactly.
So will you be watching? And what do you think about, you know, the way that they have handled all of this, really, their move to the States for privacy and protection?
Yes, the couple that invade their privacy on a daily basis.
Yeah. So that docuseries, it's dropping at 8 a.m. Cameron Walker's going to be watching it in real time for us and having reaction to it as well at 9 o'clock. So we're going to be right across this story throughout the course of the morning for you.
Border Force staff across the United Kingdom now have announced they will strike for 8 days from December the 23rd to the 31st of December.
The disruption could see 30% of flights on walkout days now being cancelled, throwing Christmas holidays into jeopardy.
This comes amid mounting pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to introduce new laws to curb strike action. Why doesn't he just get on with it? Alice Denby is Deputy Editor at CapEx and is here with us now. I can remember when Grant Shapps was Transport Secretary. We've probably had about 6 Transport Secretaries since then, to be honest, saying at the party Tory conference, we've got the laws ready to put into place. We're now being told any laws to try and curb these strikes will take months to enforce. They've still got a majority of 70.
Absolutely, and this was in the 2019 manifesto,
Yes.
so they have a mandate for this. Yeah, I think absolutely, get on with it.
But there's some suggestion, the Prime Minister suggested at PMQs yesterday, he could go further than we thought and actually ban emergency workers from having a strike, i.e. that would be ambulance workers, maybe nurses, doctors, not sure, but certainly ambulance workers, in the same way the police are already banned from going on strike.
I kind of wish that these measures weren't necessary. I wish that these workers who are going on strike would think again and think about that spirit of kind of collective responsibility that we had in the pandemic. These strikes are deliberately timed to cause the maximum amount of pain, deliberately timed to ruin the first Christmas that people have had in years. And I wish that getting tough on these unions wasn't necessary. I wish workers would think about their own responsibility and what they're doing to ordinary people.
I suppose the unions would say, look, we didn't plan this to be around the Christmas time. A lot of us have been in discussions for long periods with our employers and are frustrated, as I suppose right across the board most people are, that wages aren't keeping up with the cost of living. And it is an incredibly difficult time for earners at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone can sympathise with everyone who's struggling with the cost of living. And obviously, different strikes are happening for different reasons. So, you know, there are some workers who you might be more sympathetic to, like nurses, for example. However, you know, they're making pretty big pay demands. But the fact is, these strikes are all coming at once. It's like the worst possible advent calendar. Every day in December, something dreadful happening. And yeah, they're all timed to cause the maximum possible misery. And ultimately, they're counterproductive, because as we're seeing, they are stimulating the government to crack down even harder.
It smells to me like we know this is coordinated. It smells to me like this is coordinated action by the trade unions to try to cause maximum damage to the government, and to hell with the impact that has on rail commuters, people trying to get to work, people working in hospitals.
Yeah, it does feel like there's a sort of general strike fever.
Yeah.
Coming through the unions. But I would say that there are plenty of ordinary workers in these unions who are doing this with great regret, or who actually don't really agree with their union leaders. If you look at the votes of some of the strikes for the nurses, for example, it wasn't even a majority of trusts. I call on these workers to think again about doing this. You don't have to vote for what your union tells you to do.
Alice, the Telegraph has an interesting take on all of this. They say that the army is furious that they're having to basically do everybody else's jobs to make up for it, and yet they're being paid less than a lot of people who are in these negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a question of, you know, whenever you talk about the workers, it's not just people in the public sector, or it's not just the people who are on strike who are affected by this, it's everybody. And yeah, I mean, is it fair for the army to have to step in?
It probably isn't, but I'm glad they are, because we need people to man the ambulances. We need people to get on those border controls, because flights are bringing people in. I mean, my worry is people will just cancel coming to Britain for the future because of all the strikes. And that's the travel and hospitality industry is already on its knees. The rail strike is going to have that impact as well on the hospitality industry. Chuck the planes into the mix, disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. For the army, it's illegal for them to go on strike. And as I say, I think that these strikes will ultimately be counterproductive for these, especially for the rail, for example. We know that it needs to be modernised. We know that it's going to be automated.
Yeah, but the RMT say drivers can't be trusted to operate the doors. They can drive a train and they can slow a train down at high speed, but they can't be trusted to operate the doors. That has to be a guard.
I mean, this is so short-sighted because passenger numbers on the trains are already down. And if these strikes continue, we're going to see cuts to services. We're going to see job losses in the long term. This is so short-sighted, and I wish they would think again.
And it's the same, I think, with the postal strikes. You know, my mum was saying last night she took all her Christmas cards to a carol service to hand-deliver them to her friends rather than relying on the postal service. And she said, going forward, she just thinks it's going to be counterproductive for post. A lot of people don't use it anyway. It's sort of killing itself.
And I've got a lovely little local card shop where I use it every year, and I said, how are you doing? He said, worst Christmas ever. Because of the strike, people aren't bothering to buy cards. They're sending their cards by email. What a sad thing that is. Really, I love to find those Christmas cards on my doormat when I get in from work. I don't get that many, to be honest. But it's nice to get the few I do.
Yeah, I think it's such a shame, and I just think if you look at history, I mean, obviously we're in a different situation now, but if you look at the miners' strike, for example, I mean, we're actually, funnily enough, we are opening a new coal mine now, but it's not as though that these jobs were going to last, and all it did, I think, is precipitate the closure of the mines. I say, ironically, we're opening a new one now. So.
Which I'm rather pleased about. We're talking about
that a little later on. Alice Denby, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Right, with the time at 6:14, let's bring you up to date with today's top stories.
And talking of that coal mine, it's the Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove. He's upset the Green lobby, of course, because he's given planning permission for that new coal mine in Cumbria. It's the first in the country for 30 years. The government says the coal will be used for production of steel and not for power generation. Former COP26 President Alok Sharma, who's in the cabinet for now, has labelled the decision a backward step for UK climate action.
New research shows more than 3 million low-income households can't afford to heat their homes. UK Health and Security Agencies issued a cold weather alert as plummeting temperatures pose a risk to people's health, especially the vulnerable. UK HSA is recommending them to heat their homes to at least 18 Celsius and to wear extra clothing to keep warm.
And the first coins with the official effigy of King Charles III are appearing in circulation in post offices from today. They'll be collector's items, I think. The King's portrait will first feature on a 50p coin with the tail side marking the life and legacy of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. 4.9 million 50p coins will enter circulation across more than 9,000 UK post office branches throughout the month.
I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some of that silverware.
Well, a lot of people, of course, I think, want to get rid of cash.
Well, I can't remember the last time I actually held a 50p piece in my hand, if I'm honest, but I will seek one of these out.
Cash is king for me, and I'm really looking forward to that coin. I mean, there he is, King Charles III. I mean, it's just extraordinary, a measure of the total domination of the Queen, that first coin for over 70 years.
Looking lovely.
He looks rather like his father, George VI, don't you think?
His father wasn't George VI.
His grandfather.
Oh, right,
his
sorry.
grandfather, George VI.
Yes, I can see it. Well, they were related.
Yeah,
and I think that's a flattering image. I wouldn't want my profile all over again.
But I like cash, because when you go to a little Greasy Spoon cafe, I want to give them paying cash.
Yes.
They like it.
Yes, no, it's useful every now and then.
My greengrocers, I always pay cash.
Yes.
The newsagent.
I don't remember the last time I used cash, but I'm
Really?
terrible. I always hated cash anyway.
Do you use cheques?
No, I just use my phone.
Do you have a chequebook?
No.
What?
Just use my phone, but I tell you what you need to save your coins up for is this new Dyson invention. Have you seen that? It's doing the rounds. So he's come up with these new headphones. And you think AirPods were wacky enough, people walking around talking. Look at that! So this is a headphones that are sort of wireless and everything else, but they can now attach a filter to get rid of pollutants. So, you know, they do those amazing air purifiers in houses.
Yeah.
You can now walk around with them on Regent Street or whatever you want.
And you can also look a complete idiot
Can
by
look
doing
at
so.
Idiot. But isn't that a sad sign of the times, that the air is so filthy?
It is filthy.
We have to walk around like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. They're also rather expensive.
Yeah, how much?
I think they're almost £800. No wonder Dyson's a billionaire.
Well, exactly. But it's a British brand.
That's
so
true.
we should be saving our pennies.
That's true.
Let us know if that tickles your fancy. If you can be saving up for one of those, or if you just think they look
Maybe
ridiculous.
you've got one for Christmas.
Maybe. I doubt it.
I hope I haven't.
Right, at 6:17, we're going to go to North Yorkshire now. It's become England's first area to adopt a mandatory 100% council tax premium for second homes. This is all to tackle the housing crisis in the region.
It'll be introduced for bills on second homes from April 2024, should royal assent be given to legislation that gives local councils the extra powers. Our Yorkshire reporter, Anna Riley, she's got the story.
Second homeowners in North Yorkshire are set to have their council tax doubled under the government's Levelling Up bill in a bid to make more homes available for local people priced out of the market. Coastal towns and villages like Staithes have a larger proportion of second homes or holiday lets than permanent residents, and people here have mixed opinions on the new scheme.
Potentially it'll actually push more people towards having holiday lets than second homes. Second homes bring something to the village, but they're not used enough, in my opinion. They need to be used a lot more. Obviously I've run a holiday lane, but saying that, part of the experience of coming to Staithes for holidaymakers is the fact that there's people to talk to that live here, and that it is a real live village. People who are wanting to get money into property as second homeowners. If it means they get taxed, then they get taxed. They can probably afford to pay it anyway without worrying. Most of them, I suspect, will look for loopholes around it anyway, so I don't see as it's going to make a massive difference to anything.
I think the Airbnbs are more of a problem than the second homes in a way. So I feel that by not having, because they don't have to pay any tax, then in a way I think they're the people who should be targeting, because in a way they're the people who are sort of taking the soul from the community. It's purely business. Some of the people who've bought the cottages here may well not even have visited the village before they bought it. They just saw it as an opportunity.
Councillors hope the move will encourage people to sell or rent out their second homes. And for those that pay the tax, it's expected to bring in $14 million each year, which would be spent on housing.
If you go to some Dales communities, some of the villages in the Dales, you'll actually find that over half the properties are owned by people who don't live there 52 weeks of the year. So that is quite a significant state of affairs, which has led us to say it's no longer just a problem, it is now a crisis. And that's why we have to take drastic steps. And we appreciate it's a drastic step to double somebody's council tax.
The next steps are now going to be for the government to legislate on the second home 100% council tax rise, and it's due to come in place in April 2024. Anna Riley, GB News, Staithes.
You can see why people want to be there, though. Isn't it absolutely beautiful?
Stunning.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, let us know your thoughts on that. All of our top stories this morning, keep those coming in. After the break, we'll be asking, should the naughty list... You're always on the naughty list.
I have been quite often.
Should it be a thing of the past? Apparently it's bad for children. A psychotherapist is going to give us her views after this.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have issued yellow weather warnings covering ice and across northern Scotland, some snow for the next couple of days. Because it's from the north, if you follow the isobars, that's where our air is coming from, northerly winds. Meaning a frosty start for the vast majority this morning. Say potentially a slippery start as well. Wherever we've got any showers with that cold air and the cold ground, it could be icy. Parts of Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England and eastern England too. And snow showers still coming in across northern Scotland. For many, it's a sunny day today, but it will be cold. And later on, a bit more cloud coming into southeast Scotland, northeast England. That is going to bring more in the way of wet weather, a wintry mix with some snow likely, especially over hills. Temperatures 2 or 3 for the vast majority at best. For much of the day, we're going to be struggling around or below freezing. Just that little area of wet weather coming into northeast England this evening needs to be watched, could provide a covering of snow. Certainly there'll be some over the North York moors. And again, wherever we've got any kind of shower, be it rain, sleet or snow, it could turn icy, and certainly more snow showers continuing through the night across northern Scotland. Again, a frosty one tonight, temperatures down to -2, -3, -4, even in towns and cities, and lower in rural spots. Friday, again, potentially icy where we've got some showers. The showers over West Wales, perhaps southwest England, Northern Ireland, some snow here over the hills. The wind's a bit lighter perhaps on Friday, but still strong enough to blow more snow showers over northern Scotland. Again, for the vast majority, tomorrow will just be crisp, sunny and cold, with temperatures struggling to get much above 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. Doesn't get any warmer through the weekend. It stays cold, frosty, further wintry showers, therefore a continued ice risk. Sunny spells, but also some freezing fog. Keep up to date with those warnings on the Met Office website.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the time is now 6:24 and still to come on today's programme.
At 6:45, we will be speaking to the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, about the current wave of strike action, the ongoing battle against Strep A in schools, and the government's new plan to get more people into jobs.
And at 7:20, we're going to get reaction from Cumbria after the government approved a controversial new coal mine.
Get in touch in all the usual ways. gbviews at gbnews.uk. Right, there's just 17 sleeps left. Gosh, I hope everyone's done their Christmas shopping until Christmas. So if you're a parent, you've probably sent off your child's letter to Father Christmas and tidied up after your elf on a shelf to make sure your little ones are being well behaved.
But is telling children they risk the wrath of Santa's naughty list bad for them? One expert has called the threat anxiety-inducing for children, and it should be avoided.
Well, let's speak to psychotherapist Fiona Yassin. What's your views in all of this? Are we turning our children into little Christmas snowflakes?
Oh, I think good morning. Yes, I know that many people will have been very busy making sure that their elves have been misbehaving or not over the last day. I think what we're talking about here is children who have a predisposition to anxiety or other mental health problems, and lots of children at the moment after the last couple of years are more sensitive than they were before. So what I've really been asking is it necessary to use these sort of empty threats towards children? Do they need to think that they can become really bad? It's not the behaviour that's unwelcome at that point, it's them. And if we're on Santa's naughty list, what does that mean to them? You know, if they're sitting there really believing everything that mum and dad says, that can be pretty difficult.
Isn't it just a classic way of keeping rather raucous, boisterous children in check? My mother used to do it to me all the time. I don't think it turned me into a foaming, frothing at the mouth misfit. I was told if you don't do as you're told, Santa Claus might miss this chimney.
Okay, and I think that it's something that many parents use, and I know that many children will be sitting thinking, have I made it, or am I in the middle? What have I got to do for the next few days to be able to get onto that list? But is it really okay to be using that and letting children go to bed at night feeling like they're a bit anxious? Or would we be better off encouraging the behaviours that we want to see all year round in a slightly different way?
OK, so sort of a carrot rather than a stick, as it were. The trouble that strikes me, I mean, the talk of the naughty list is really just only sort of appropriate for young children, say under 10, because I don't think it's really going to work for kids over the age of 10. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but mental health doesn't seem to be such a big problem in that bracket. Don't we risk just tiptoeing around things and creating this whole generation of children who are anxious because parents are projecting that onto them?
Well, I think children under the age of 10 are also feeling anxious or can feel anxious and certainly do demonstrate some behaviours that indicate that things are not okay there. Is it okay then that parents could be a little bit more straightforward, that we don't necessarily need to use such kind of carrot and stick, I think, to sort of reframe it in your words, that if a child is thinking, I'm not going to get, an older child, I'm not going to get unless I do, is that really the sort of behaviour we want to model later on, perhaps when it is a little bit more concerning, because we're asking them to be in some way dishonest or manipulate, and then what happens when parents don't hold the boundary right to the end and the gifts appear under the tree anyway? So there's a lot underneath using this in order to get something back from a child when it could be much more straightforward.
Isn't part of this strategy also the suggestion that perhaps you shouldn't force the child to go and give Granny a great big slobbering kiss to thank her for her present?
Poor Granny.
Yeah, my grandma would have been furious I didn't give her a big snog when she knitted my annual Christmas jumper.
Yeah. Can you remember that? Can you remember how horrible it was? I can remember international phone calls with family that I didn't really know and having to sort of speak to them and I didn't want to, and then having grown-ups come in the house and, yes, come and give, Auntie Ethel this big hug or whatever. Children say, oh, no, I don't want to, or they're pulling on Mum's skirt, I really don't want to do that. And Mum says, no, you must. But then we tell them the next time that we're talking to them, when we're doing other types of education with them, you don't have to give people any kind of affection that you don't want to, and that you have the right to say no to things. So again, just like the Santa naughty or nice, it's just about not giving confusing messages, because when we need these messages to be really important, we need them to be able to be really clearly understood.
But it's your granny.
I do feel like it's sometimes just overcomplicating things.
Yeah.
And you could, just in a beautiful family setting, you want your child to be polite and have nice manners, and suddenly we're like, don't force the child to kiss Granny because it could give mixed messages. No, just give Granny a kiss, and let's not assume everyone's a paedophile or out to hurt the children. Let's just, hope that there's some nice goodness out there in the world. Am I naive?
No.
And also to be able to let children know that they are whole people. They're not miniature, less effective adults. And if they're saying no to things, then they just have as much right to be able to say no to giving that piece of affection as we do to be able to sort of shove them to do it. So I think it's just it's not wanting to be spoiling Christmas or taking away the sparkle. It's just asking parents to be a little bit considerate that they don't have mini adults and we don't have children who need to perform, that they're absolutely okay just being as they are.
Tony Yassin, psychotherapist, really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thanks for joining us bright and early. I think they're well-meant suggestions, but I won't be using any of them.
I'm not a dad, but...
I bet you're a lovely uncle.
I love my nephews and nieces, and I get a big slobbering hug and kiss from them, even the ones who are in their 30s, and now the great nephews and nieces, the same, and I really look forward to it.
Yeah.
And I don't think they feel they have to.
And I also think, telling my little one that he's going to be on the naughty list if he doesn't behave is better than saying you can have half an hour's TV if you do this. Bribing them is the alternative, this sort of encouraging. Children need a bit of coercion occasionally to behave.
Carrot and
it's
stick.
not new, it's difficult. Look, as long as it's done with love, goodness me, I adore my children, but I'm not going to start tiptoeing around them.
No,
anyway,
exactly.
Let us know your thoughts on all of this morning.
Now, after the break, we're going to be going through the papers with Freddie Gray and Nikki Hodgson.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:34. You are watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with me, Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Let's take a look at your newspaper front pages.
Well, the Times says nearly a third of flights, dear God, could be cancelled this Christmas as airport workers are the latest to walk out.
The Telegraph go with army furious. Soldiers are ordered to give up their Christmas over strikes.
And the Express focuses on Harry and Meghan's new Netflix documentary series out today and say this: stop the betrayal of our beloved Queen.
And The Guardian says Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has ignored climate warnings after he approved the first new coal mine in Britain for 30 years.
And the Mirror need on that man, Matt Hancock, quitting the world of politics after he'd been in the jungle and setting his sights on so-called exciting possibilities.
I love it when there's a whole array of different stories on the front pages. It's quite fun. I have a feeling, though, it's going to be all Harry and Meghan this time tomorrow, isn't it?
I think
We've got
it will.
just an hour and a half until that
I've got
drops
to say on
Netflix.
Matt Hancock, no surprise he's leaving politics.
But do you think this is because of his local party? The Eye is saying that he was ousted by them.
I spoke to him yesterday. He told me that he was thinking before he went into the jungle he might leave, but that probably depended on how well he did. But the local party have said he's not fit to be
Not
MD.
welcome.
And I suspect that his first thing he'll do now is hire a showbiz agent.
If he hasn't already.
I don't think he
Hasn't
has.
already. Oh, really? Well, let's go inside the papers. Joining us this morning is author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson and deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray. Very good morning. Good morning to you. Freddie, let's start with strikes, shall we? On a lot of the papers as well. And, yeah, it really is beginning to look a lot like a general strike, according to the Mail.
Yeah, I think it's good to start with this story, so not to feed the monster of Meghan and Harry immediately. It's gloom, gloom, gloom again. Winter of discontent goes on and on and on. Airport border guards is the big one today, isn't it? I think over December 23rd to 28th and up to New Year, it's going to be a very, very difficult time for anyone who wants to travel. And because of sort of pent-up demand after the pandemic, there's going to be a lot of people planning to travel this Christmas, so they're going to have a very difficult time. It's going to be awful. Is it a general strike? Nikki informed me earlier that the last actual general strike was 1926.
And it wasn't a success.
And it was not a success, no. Because people...
It ended much quicker than the unions expected because people were poor. Yeah. They couldn't afford, they literally couldn't feed themselves.
Yeah. Do you think, Andrew, there's a little bit of government tactics here to actually... You know, Sunak's talking about these anti-strike laws, slightly vague on how they'll work. But the government tactic here is to generate enough public sympathy by the disgust at the selfishness of this.
And also, the RMT, the leader, Mick Lynch, had appeared to be doing so very well, hadn't he? And he made that commitment about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We will not strike over Christmas. He changed that this week. 4 days over Christmas, he is Grinch.
After what
He's
a lot of
Christmas.
people considered to be quite a decent offer.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Nikki, what's your view on all of this? Not quite a general strike, but it almost feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, we did look it up because we were just sort of like, has there ever... how many general strikes have there been? But there's technically only ever been one. But I mean, the thing that worries me is potentially Rishi Sunak's new laws that he's going to bring in to make it illegal to strike, because I feel like that's an infringement of our democratic right to do so for workers. But if you strike at Christmas, when it's been a terrible year for most people. If people have booked to go on holiday, they've probably scrimped and saved to do so, or they're not necessarily going on holiday. They're often just going to see family, you know, after everything that's happened with COVID, to then strike at that time and potentially put that, you know, this only little window of joy they have in jeopardy, then people are not going to back you.
No.
People are not going to support you.
It's really cynical, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's talked about this, Freddie, this legislation, but for God's sake, man, why don't they get on with it? I was at the Tory conference in October. Grant Shapps was the Transport Secretary then. They've changed so often since. He said the legislation was ready to go to ensure a minimum level of service on its services like the railways, which is what you get in France and Germany and Italy. They still have done nothing.
Yeah, I think there are concerns about making it legally kosher. But as you say, it has happened in other countries.
They've got a majority of 70-odd.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
But they're saying it's at least like a year away. So again, what's kind of the point of it? It's not going to help anyone this Christmas.
I know, and they need to do it now. But I think they're right to send the troops in. And, Nikki, your point about to make band strikes, it's difficult, human rights and all that, but the army can't go on strike.
Yeah, and I
the
think,
police can't go on strike.
Well, exactly. So I think he's only talking about banning it for emergency services. And you can understand when you're talking about A&E...
And ambulance, There's some inconsistency. There's already some inconsistency there.
When you do have the army and, as you say, the police not being able to do that. But, yeah, this is in the Telegraph front page. And they're miffed because they're stepping in, having to do everybody's jobs, according to army sources, and yet getting paid less than what a lot of people are lobbying for in these negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we always sort of see the army as, you know, the saviours of the country, don't we, when it comes to, you know, international issues and domestic issues. You know, certainly when there's floods, those kinds of things, we really, really rely on them and we appreciate them. But this is sort of saying that soldiers themselves are not happy about having to be drafted in. You know, it's not really part of their job description, actually, to have to kind of be manpower if there isn't manpower there in a certain sector. And I suppose, well, the only issue I take with this is that one senior defence source has said, you know, a private soldier only earns $22,000 a year. The people that are striking are earning more than that. But when you're a soldier, you do have your rent or mortgage, you know, you have your rent covered, you have your food covered, you have free travel.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things are subsidised for you, so it's kind of not exactly fair to compare wage on wage. But I think the point...
rent covered because you have to live in barracks and you're away from where...
Well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of sacrifice that you make. It's a certain kind of lifestyle and you kind of have to have your eyes open going in. But I think what is important about this is the idea that just because they're trained for a few days, they're not necessarily that skilled to do the work. Yeah. They've got lots of general skills, but they themselves feel underprepared to go and do, you know, go be border force or go be ambulance drivers. So it's not as if we're just putting in spare staff that actually know exactly how to do those roles anyway.
But the army has such great expertise in so many areas. Do you remember when they stepped in to build the Nightingale hospitals? They did it in a matter of days.
They did a lot of COVID testing as well.
They did.
Yes.
And they're quite good at putting the public sector to shame.
They are. And also it's reassuring for the public to see them, to see their men and women in uniform. And I think the unions are very fearful of the impact of the army here because it could dilute their efforts, which are designed to cause maximum damage. Mick Lynch is ashamed about it. Strikes, to be effective, have to be done at the least popular time.
I think admiration for the army will go through the roof. But as we're saying, you know, I mean, I thought about joining the army when I was little, believe it or not. But I wanted to do it, you know, because I like the idea of firing a gun.
Oh.
I didn't think I'd like to check passports.
Do you have any help?
You do that with your pen.
Yeah, have you had any help?
Do I need to see a therapist?
Yeah, maybe you do.
No, I think that's pretty
love shooting.
When he grew out of it, he didn't do it, did he? So he's all right.
Yeah, it's pretty classic.
Did you have to kiss your grandmother
at Christmas?
to America did that traumatise you? Because you had to kiss Granny
no
at Christmas?
kissing in my family, absolutely not.
Oh, well, that's a problem, I think.
Oh, I'm incredibly emotionally mixed up. Have you not been able to tell?
Yeah,
Speaking of emotionally mixed up, this was rather disturbing in the Daily Mail's calendar of chaos.
Yeah.
Co-op coffin makers.
Oh.
Coffin, not coffee.
Yeah.
Are striking on December the 8th, 9th, 10th...
That's today.
...and 11th. So, yes, so don't need a coffin.
Well, you can go somewhere else and get a coffin. Then they don't have a monopoly.
No, they do. There's only 30 companies apparently in the UK that make
Great
coffins.
opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Well, I tell you,
There was
there is
demand.
a huge backlog in trying to get funerals through, actually.
Yeah.
I know this from experience. A friend of mine died last week, and it's very, very difficult to get quick funerals, and the coffins are, hard to get. It makes that even more
And this does have
traumatic.
echoes of the 1978 winter of discontent when the dead literally weren't being buried. Because local government workers had gone on strike.
It's depressing, isn't it? Well, let's cheer ourselves up with a coal mine, Freddie. This is in the front of The Guardian. Michael Gove going in, COP26 last year, this year building the first coal mine in 30 years. It's quite a departure.
Yes, what is Michael Gove up to? That's always an interesting question.
He was quite green, to be fair, as Environment Secretary.
He was very green. He was a big... yes, but he's changing tack, and he's obviously willing to take some flack here. I think because he probably senses rightly that public opinion is on the side of solving our energy problems. And, The Guardian point out that the vast majority of the coal from this proposed mine would be exported, so it may not be an immediate solution to our energy problems. But nevertheless, I think there is an appetite for Britain to bring back its energy sector, to revive itself. And actually, we used to be a sort of energy superpower in a way.
I mean, they should be getting on, in my view, with reopening a lot of the North Sea oil fields.
Absolutely.
Which have been put on hold.
Well, but instead, the budget imposed a sort of 75% tax on their profits.
Yeah.
Which has disincentivised exploration of the North Sea.
Well, we've already seen one company announce £100 million development plans. They've withdrawn them totally because of it.
Yeah.
Nikki, new coal mine. Do you think public opinion is on the turn?
I don't, and I come from a mining town, so I find this very psychologically interesting, what it is to have your mines closed and then be expected to go work in a new mine. I don't know. I'll be very interested to see how the Cumbrians feel about this new mine opening. It feels like a lot of mixed messages from the government about what we're meant to be doing with energy and with the climate. So this story kind of boggles me, actually.
It'll create 2,500 jobs.
Well, that is true. Yeah, Cumbrians will be pleased from that point of view, certainly. Look, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll be back with more papers with Freddie and with Nikki. And we're also hoping to catch up with Education Secretary Gillian Keegan before 7 o'clock.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. We're continuing to look through the papers with author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson and the deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, who's just been confessing to his early gun habit.
Yes. I'm a messed up person. I'll repeat it.
Right.
For the people who didn't catch it the first time. Yeah.
Now, we can't get away from Harry and Meghan. The documentary.
No, let's not.
Nikki, it's on the front page of most of the papers. Curiously, the Express have got exclusive on their story. I don't quite know what makes that exclusive, as every single paper in the world is writing about it. However...
I don't know what the exclusive is either. I've been trying to figure that out as I've been reading the story. But basically what they're saying is Harry and Meghan now stand accused of breaking the late Queen's trust because they had made an agreement when they gave up their roles as, working royals, but maintaining some of the elements of those privileges. And this is really about the idea that, they've betrayed her. She's barely been dead. I mean, a few months
today.
3 months.
3 months today.
And the deal was kind of, yes, you're free to go, but go off quietly. That was the idea, wasn't it? And they just have done absolutely the opposite of that. I mean, it's really interesting, the timing of this series, because there's been lots of people saying, well, it's not in their control, it's Netflix pushing it out, and but they're capitalising on the Queen's death. They are capitalising on the momentum of interest around the royal family. But it just feels like when you saw the pictures of them the other night in New York, and Meghan was absolutely beaming, particularly radiant, and it was hard not to see that as a sort of kind of triumphant face. I don't know. It was really interesting reading their body language and their facial expressions psychologically, because you can't help feeling that they are just very, very pleased with themselves about everything that's happening.
Is the monarchy in trouble? I mean, we saw the King being egged for the second time in 3 months, and that never happened to Her Majesty the Queen. These two are threatening never to stop bad-mouthing the family. It's a huge problem, isn't it, for the King and for the Prince of Wales?
I think in Britain, Harry and Meghan benefit the immediate royal family because everyone feels very sorry for them for the way that they're being treated by Harry and Meghan. I think there's this sort of fashionable argument that, in Britain, people maybe find them very irritating, but in America, where everyone's insanely woke, it's going down very well. A, that's not true. And B, even if it were true, it doesn't really matter. I love America, but that doesn't mean I like Kim Kardashian. They like a lot of dreadful people there.
And also, you must get to a point, like the law of diminishing economic returns. How many more times can they say things? I mean, how many more times can they shock and amaze us? Because there's only so much they can say.
And they only had a few months as working royals, because they weren't very good at doing it.
Well, listen, we have to interrupt you, and I do so for good reason. We have the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, standing by. So good to see you, Minister. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Look, let's get straight in, shall we, to the strikes. Now Border Force joining in the fun. I suppose it begs the question, who is running the country? Is it the unions or is it you?
Well, of course we're running the country, but the unions are disrupting aspects of public service, which is incredibly disappointing. I mean, we've been through a lot as a country and we still continue to go through trying to recover from the pandemic and obviously deal with inflation and the rising energy costs, which all of us are dealing with. So it is incredibly disappointing, particularly over Christmas. This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts.
Prime Minister, just get on with these tough new laws that he keeps talking about.
Well, yes, I mean, they are going, they are going to go through, I think they've been introduced,
another year.
And they are going to go through Parliament. They do take time. I mean, that is true. They do take time. But we do have, I think, 2,000 military personnel who are trained and, ready to support us. But, yeah, it's incredibly disappointing.
But Secretary of State Grant Shapps was talking about this legislation in October. They were talking about it earlier in the year. We've known these strikes have been accelerating in their volume. Why is it taking so long? Why is there no legislation already before the Commons?
Well, I mean, these things do take time. I mean, obviously, we've had a little bit of disruption to our
you've been in power since 2019.
Programme as well.
Secretary of State, you've been in power since 2019.
Yes, but
you've had over 2 years already.
Yes, and we're the only party that would introduce this legislation. By the way, it is important. It is going to be introduced. You always hope not to do this, right? You hope that you can have sensible working relationships, but it looks like there's been a breakdown of those, and some of the unions are determined to spoil Christmas for everybody.
I've got to ask you about the situation in our schools. 9 children now having tragically lost their lives to strep A. I know a lot of parents extremely anxious about this situation. I've spoken to doctors and pharmacists over the last couple of days who say this is a really serious situation. Is the government out of touch? Pharmacists telling us, quite frankly, they cannot get their hands on this liquid suspension, the liquid syrupy form of antibiotics that is suitable for children.
Well, there is no national shortage of supply, but of course when these things happen you could get some spikes locally, so the NHS are working their way through that at the moment, but there is no national shortage of supply. But of course it is worrying for parents. I mean, it's your worst nightmare, and our massive sympathies go out to the families who've been impacted by this. It's really every parent's worst nightmare. But to put it into context, it is extremely rare still, but we are urging parents to keep vigilant, to look for the symptoms: fever, headache, sore throat, and a rash on the skin. And all the details are on the UK HSA website, and they are monitoring very, very closely the situation.
But when GPs are being told to blanket hand out antibiotics to any concerned parents, when whole year groups where there are cases are being told to be given antibiotics, we're hearing reports that parents are being given prescriptions, but they're driving from pharmacy to pharmacy to pharmacy with sick children, unable to get their hands on it. Are people stockpiling? I mean, how can you say that there is no national shortage, and yet children who need this prescription can't get their hands on it?
Well, I think that's what the NHS are working through. I mean, you sometimes do get this surge in specific spots, but there is no national shortage of supply. That's what we're being told. And there's also supply chains that are also being set up as well. So we just urge people to let the NHS work this through.
Are you still green? Is it still a green government, Secretary of State? Because Michael Gove's announced the first coal mine in Britain, new coal mine for 30 years. Some of your colleagues are appalled.
Well, obviously we have a fantastic record actually on renewables. 40% of our energy now comes from renewables, and we've done a lot over the last 20 years actually to go down that path to be net zero by 2050. I mean, this coal mine is very specific. I've actually been to Cleator and the area around there, Whitehaven, and there's a lot of local support for this. We've been talking about localism a lot over the last few days in terms of planning. There's a lot of local support for this. There's a lot of jobs that it will bring, both direct and indirect. And it's very, very specific. It is not for energy. It is specifically coking coal to make steel. And by the way, to meet our net zero targets, we will need a lot of steel to make the wind turbines or the nuclear power station, etc. So it is, it's been passed by the Labour Council. It's been passed 3 times by the Planning Inspectorate. And effectively, the choice of, the source of supply of this coking coal is either that mine or importing it from somewhere else. So from a carbon perspective, looked at, specifically, it actually is probably more efficient to get it out of the ground ourselves, and we will need a lot of steel. But of course, people are worried about the signalling, but the signalling, it's still our intent to, phase out coal, and this is a very, very specific industrial use.
Yeah, people are worried about the signalling. I mean, we lecture countries around the world about coal, and it wouldn't have happened under Boris Johnson, would it? And the COP26 President Alok Sharma saying this is a big step backwards.
Well, this has actually been talked about for a long time. As I say, there's a lot of local support. It's been passed by the Labour Council, by 3 planning inspectors, and this is a common sense decision. It's in the north. It's going to bring brilliant jobs to that area, and as I say, there is a lot of local support around Whitehaven and Cleator for this mine.
Secretary of State, today you're announcing almost £500 million investment in skills training to try and get more people into jobs. This is to help university and college students. What exactly are you going to be telling us today?
Well, it's actually capital equipment. There's about 100 universities, and they're all getting money for investment in new things for skills and skills training. So that's advanced manufacturing. There's health. We've set up in one of them. It's going to buy a residential, sort of a mock residential care home to really train the next generation of podiatrists and people who will help with elderly care. So there's a lot of different initiatives, but it's really based on skills and skills training and making sure they've got the latest equipment to train on and the latest settings. So we're investing heavily in that.
It comes just a day after you'll have seen that report, which suggested that nearly 1 in 10 young people, particularly those between 18 to 24, don't have any plans to ever go to work or study.
Yeah, well, I think their plans may change over life, but, you know, you do need to work, you do need to study, and basically most young people do want to get on in life, but, you know, there's been a lot of disruption for young people, and a lot of people, you know, some people are uncertain about their futures. That's why we're putting a lot of investment. There is, you know, 1.255 million job vacancies in the country, a lot of those very high quality jobs, but we need to make sure people have the skills so that they can take those jobs. That's why we're investing in our universities, in our FE colleges, and in our skills training, in courses, in boot camps. There's a lot of investment in helping people at any age, at any stage, actually, to be able to get the skills they need to get fantastic jobs. And, you know, work is very enjoyable, actually. People do, you know, need that structure, that purpose, and need money as well.
Needing money. Former Health Secretary Matt Hancock announcing yesterday he won't be standing in the next election. Rumour has it he was pushed out by his local Tory party. Are you able to tell us any more about that?
No, but I think, you know, when he went off into the jungle, it was clear that he probably had a different career path in mind for himself.
A loss for the party?
Oh yeah, I mean he's done being health secretary in the middle of a pandemic is a very difficult thing to do, and he did that pretty much most of the way through the pandemic. So of course he will have learnt a lot through that, and he's been a great addition. He's played his part, but people move on. That politics isn't people don't stay in it for life. Now people tend to do their. I mean, I didn't get elected till I was 49, so a lot of people are either going on to their second careers or coming into politics later in life.
Can you imagine yourself in the jungle, Secretary of State?
Never, no. I couldn't stand one bug, let alone a whole ton of them being tipped over me. No, absolutely not. I can safely say that would not be me.
We'll hold you to that. Secretary of State, thanks very much, Gillian Keegan, for joining us this morning. Let's get some quick analysis from our panel, who are still standing by, Freddie Gray and Nikki Hodgson. What did you make of that?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I mean, it reminds me, on the kind of not getting the legislation through on the strikes, it reminds me of the government and the migration issue. It's been a lot of talk, and very aggressive, tough-sounding talk that seems to sort of just be designed for often the papers, that then is not matched by any actual concrete action or any clear plan for that concrete action, actually.
Well, I think people are very confused as well, because obviously during the pandemic we were able to rush through certain elements of legislation for the protection of the country. So people will have noticed that, and then now it won't make any sense to them anymore. If we desperately need it because we need the country to work, why aren't we rushing it through?
OK, well, listen, Nikki Hodgson, Freddie Gray, thanks for taking us through the papers. We'll see more from both of them just after 7:30.
Harry and Meghan's Netflix series launch will be dominating this morning amid a storm of controversy.
So the Sussexes' Netflix series is going to drop in 1 hour's time, threatening to be another bombshell for the monarchy.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Well, the first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new Netflix docu-series premieres at 8 o'clock. Trailers promise the inside scoop on how the Sussexes stepped away from their royal duties, with Harry referring to a dirty game.
And more bad news. Border Force staff at major airports, including Heathrow, have announced they're going to strike from the 23rd of December. The walkouts threaten Christmas holidays, with airports reportedly being told to cancel up to 30% of flights on strike days.
The Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, has just told us the government will work with the Army to respond to the increasing strikes.
This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts.
That was the Education Secretary. And the first coal mine in the United Kingdom in decades has been approved by the Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove. The government says the decision is consistent with their policies on cutting carbon emissions, but environmental campaigners say it's going to undermine climate targets.
And the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has announced he'll not be standing in the next general election. It follows comments from members of his local party that he was not fit to represent them after appearing on I'm a Celebrity.
We want to hear from you, so get in touch the usual way via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. and let us know where you're watching or listening to us from.
So it is our top story this morning, and we've been discussing whether or not we would watch it if it wasn't mandatory for our job. We have to watch it, OK?
Do.
I think, truth be told, I'd probably watch it.
Yeah, would you watch all 3 hours?
Probably. Depends the quality, but I would want to see and know what
you see, I've
the
given up
conversation
on the
was
Queen.
about.
Partly, I know the Queen is fiction.
The Crown.
The Crown, sorry, but I still find it so intensely irritating when I think that didn't happen, so I've stopped watching it.
OK.
And I think this is going to be a lot of fiction.
Yes.
But I think it is going to show one thing about Meghan, that she's, after all, a very good actress.
Well, this is true, yeah. And, you know, there is an argument. My husband said to me, you've got to stop feeding the monster. Don't watch it, because it's lining their pockets. £88 million they're getting for trashing the royal family. Lots of you have been getting in touch on this. Matisse has said, no, I definitely will not be watching this garbage. How dare they continue this sustained attack on our royal family?
And Kenny Newton's not happy either. I'm not watching it. Once said, I don't think they will be welcome back to the UK. Nothing will change my love and respect for the royal family.
Penny in Grantham's not holding back. She says they should shut up and go and get proper jobs.
And Elaine isn't pleased either. We won't need to watch it because the media will be giving it non-stop airtime anyway. I think we will be.
Well, I'm afraid it's a sort of
big
vicious
story.
circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a huge story. Margaret says, I'm so angry at the whole thing because I blame Meghan for all this disharmony with the royal family. Look, let's not forget how loved Prince Harry was.
He
and
was.
how we all embraced them into the nation.
And I think in the last poll, he'd almost moved into negative territory. And it's easy to blame Meghan. It takes two to do this. He's the royal. He could have said, no, enough.
Well, let's speak to Kinsey Schofield, showbiz reporter, joining us from LA, where, of course, the Sussexes live. Look, it's 1 hour till this bomb goes off. Kinsey, they'd promised the late Queen, who died, by the way, 3 months ago today, that they would live up to her legacy, that they wouldn't trash the family. Do you think that they will honour those promises?
Isabel, I mean, judging solely by the trailer that we've seen, I'd have to tell you no. When you insult the institution, which Harry hints at when he talks about, you know, people leaking stories about him and his wife, he's talking about the palace leaking stories about him and his wife. When you insult the institution, you insult its leader. And at the time that Harry and Meghan decided to step away from the British royal family, the Queen was that leader. And in doing so, you insult the Queen.
Her Majesty, the late Her Majesty in the United States, Kinsey.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please, sir?
We lost her 3 months ago today, but how popular is the Queen still in the United States?
She is absolutely adored, loved. I mean, you know, I was so completely in awe of the American reaction to the loss of Queen Elizabeth. People were devastated, and she is a very respected woman. I know Meghan talks a lot about, you know, feminism and female leadership, and I really don't know anybody in my lifetime that I have seen that is a stronger female leader than Queen Elizabeth II. And unfortunately, we haven't seen Meghan respect her or discuss her in that instance really ever at all, except in the Variety article, which she was kind of forced to do because she was kind of, you know, doing this celebration tour at the time of her death, and she really kind of had to steer in a different direction so she didn't look bad.
You wonder what sort of calculations they've made as a couple behind the scenes, because they must realise that after this docuseries and then the book, The Spare, there's no way they're going to be invited to the coronation next year. How can King Charles welcome them with open arms after all of this?
But Isabel, they need him to, because they need this connection to the royal family for relevance. So
or the more they
come groveling back, I think that we're going to see some groveling. Yeah, they've got to cash those checks and they've got to complete those contracts, but they also desperately need this connection to the family.
I think Isabel's right. I think this will sign them out. This will be the end of their, effectively, their connection to the royal family, because they're going too far. We've seen it from the trailers, the hints, the menace. There's going to be intense criticism of Princess of Wales. our future Queen, Camilla, who's the Queen Consort.
Yeah, they'll push the royal family so far that the royal family say, I'm sorry, you're not welcome. And then that becomes the new hurt, the new insult that they then can trade on. It's sort of self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I fear in that instance that you would hear even more extreme stories. Then they might leak things that they were holding on to. Harry told Oprah he would never reveal the royal racist. I mean, is that what they hold on to? Is that their card where they can continue to, would they ever use that against the family to try to keep a foot in the door? I don't know. But you're absolutely right. It feels like we're spiraling downhill right now, and I don't know if there's any way back.
He will never reveal who the royal racist is. Let's not forget, he's the only royal who was actually caught on camera in 2009 at Sandhurst using the P word. And he had to make a public apology for that. He also got in trouble for wearing a Nazi uniform as well. He's hardly the moral arbiter, is he?
Yeah.
And yet he's making these allegations.
And we don't know that there is any royal racist because it's only their word for it, and they've never identified the person. And I don't think particularly asking a question of whether your child is going to look more like the father, Harry, or more like the mother, who's a woman of colour, I don't see why that's racist in any case.
Well, and they're going to sit there and accept the Ripple of Hope award. I mean, the irony, the fact that he sat there and accepted that award for fighting racism. I've always, I recently was wondering, could the entire idea of race, could that have been up to divert attention away from Harry's past? I've worked in PR. That very well could have been a strategy. We're going to throw it on you so it can't come back to me. I don't know, but they have made royal watching, which when I grew up, royal watching was so fun. It was about tiaras. It was about fashion, style, and beauty, and sophistication, and elegance. And they've made it a very toxic place with these allegations, and it's not as fun anymore. And I miss the days and the innocence of royal watching. But today, I mean, you get on social media and it's a landmine because of the racism allegations and because of two people that are perpetual victims.
Just really quickly, Kinsey, Andrew and I were a bit mystified by some of the banter that Meghan and Harry were having on stage at the Ripple of Hope Award when he said, I thought this was a date night. I don't know if it was an American joke, but we didn't really understand. I mean, I thought that was kind of insulting to the event organisers if he didn't know or care that he was going. I mean, did you get that?
I mean, I think that he just has a weird sense of humor. I thought we were going to be the only ones in the room. I guess that was the joke. No, you're hanging out with Alec Baldwin, who is, accused of manslaughter. You're hanging out with less than stellar individuals in a room that are paying millions of dollars to be there with you. I don't think that that's an American thing. I think it's just he's not very funny.
Got it. Kinsey, thank you. Thanks so much.
She's right about that. He's not very funny, because if that was meant to be humour, I didn't laugh. However, his wife laughed.
Oh, she found it hilarious.
She thought it was so funny,
you said,
didn't she?
very good actress.
Very good actress. She really is.
Right, there's just under an hour to go. 8 o'clock, we'll be catching up with our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, live from our reaction room. He's going to be in central London watching it as soon as it drops with a panel of royal experts this morning. So don't miss that coverage throughout the programme, right here on GB News.
Now, border force staff across the country have announced they're going to strike for 8 days from 23rd to the 31st of December.
Yeah, the disruption could see 30% of flights on walkout days being cancelled, throwing people's Christmas holidays into jeopardy.
This comes amid mounting pressure on the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, to introduce new laws to curb strike action. Get on with it, Prime Minister. The Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, says the military is going to be called in to help, and the government will fast-track legislation on strikes.
This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts. We're the only party that would introduce this legislation. By the way, it is important. It is going to be introduced. You always hope not to do this, right? You hope that you can have sensible working relationships, but it looks like there's been a breakdown of those, and some of the unions are determined to spoil Christmas for everybody.
Well, let's get some reaction to all of that from Alice Denby, Deputy Editor at CapX. I mean, is that persuasive? They've been talking about it for forever. They've been in power since 2000 and whenever.
12
years. Yeah.
12 years.
Yeah, and this was in the 2019 manifesto to ensure services continued during strikes. I think this is really a function of just how difficult this government is finding it to deliver anything. I mean, of course, we can sympathise. We weren't expecting the pandemic, we weren't expecting the war in Ukraine. But things that were in the manifesto and still are not even coming through Parliament now, I think this government has a real problem with delivery.
Yeah, it's also about promising. They've made a promise to the people, so they've broken the promise on tax. OK, we're in a terrible financial crisis, but a promise to put anti-strike legislation in place when they've got a majority of 70 and the government's been in power for 3 years. And they're now saying it's not going to come into force for another year. Well, that's not going to help anybody now, is it?
Keir Starmer, is it a bit of a blancmange government, a bit wobbly?
I just think they've got a problem with prioritising, and I think you can absolutely understand that during the pandemic that was the focus and they couldn't really do anything else. But I do think it's odd that they seem to be prioritising things like the online safety bill, which is about regulating the internet, when this is actually affecting people's lives here and now.
Yeah.
And as I think some of your previous guests were saying, you know, the government did show that in a crisis it can get things done, it can deliver. And I think people will be surprised when they're looking at this miserable Christmas that the government is not acting more swiftly.
Do you think that a ban will be difficult to get through, though, on certain... I mean, I know that it's impossible for the army to strike, for example, or the police. And not Sir Keir Starmer, he's just... gosh, I'm getting it all wrong. Rishi Sunak is saying that he's potentially going to be introducing bans on other emergency services, so say the A&E or ambulance drivers. Will that be hard to persuade the public on? I mean, obviously, in the right wing, everyone thinks that's a good idea, but, you know...
I feel like the unions are going to lose sympathy. You know, they're making people's lives miserable. They've deliberately chosen to strike at the worst possible time. And I think that the more difficult they make ordinary people's lives, the less sympathy they're going to have, which may ease the government's path. Though, that said, I mean, an all-out ban is a bit of a kind of a difficult thing to stomach. It's a fundamental right to be able to withdraw your labour. People are not indentured slaves. But then again, you know, you look at America, Joe Biden has essentially banned a rail strike by imposing a new contract on people. So there are things that you can do, and I think the public will back the government.
And I think when people die, and I'm afraid it's going to happen because an ambulance won't be able to, there won't be enough ambulance drivers or there won't be enough nurses on duty, will people blame the staff or will they blame the government for not paying enough when they know that the nurses, for instance, are seeking a pay rise of 20%? And they're getting a £1,400 pay rise for the lowest level. That's 9.3%. That's a lot more than a lot of people are getting in the private sector.
I think this is clearly the gamble that the government wants to take. The unions want people to blame the government and the government wants people to blame the unions. And I think perhaps Rishi Sunak is, as I say, taking the risk that when there's so much disruption, we're going to see people dying. If teachers are going to go on strike, you know, when kids have already lost 2 years of schooling, that people are going to get fed up with this and they're not going to stomach it anymore.
I think ministers also need to be out on the airwaves a bit more often, putting the case for why they can't match these pay rises, because everybody watching is going to have to pay because taxes will have to go up even more.
Rishi Sunak tried to do that, didn't he, at the dispatch box, and he said, we've been very reasonable on all of this and we've taken the advice of the independent pay review. But I think you're right, he needs to play that card a bit better, especially his ministers on the morning rounds.
I think people will understand that because people who work in the private sector who have no option to go on strike recognise that they're not going to be getting, you know, 17% pay rises. I think people do understand that we are in straitened financial position and also that this is not in the long-term interests of many workers to go on strike because, frankly, ultimately it's going to result in job losses or increasing automation or just closure of the railways. So I think, absolutely, I think you're right. I think they need to be making the case why it doesn't make sense at the moment.
OK. Thanks very much, Alice Denby.
What's the time? It's 7:16. So let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove's given planning permission for a new coal mine in Cumbria. It's the first in the country for 30 years. The government says the coal will be used for the production of steel and not for power generation. But former COP26 President Alok Sharma has labelled the decision a backward step for UK climate action.
And new research shows more than 3 million low-income households can't afford to put the heating on. The UK Health and Security Agency has issued a cold weather alert as plummeting temperatures pose a risk to people's health, especially the vulnerable. They're telling us to heat your homes to at least 18 degrees Celsius and wear extra clothing to keep warm.
And the first coins with the official effigy of King Charles III will appear in circulation in post offices from today. The King's portrait will first feature on a 50p coin, with the tail side commemorating the life and legacy of his mother. Right, demand for homes to rent is continuing to rise, but the appetite to buy homes is actually apparently falling. This is according to surveyors.
Yep, so findings from the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors shows there's upward pressure on rental prices as UK house prices fall at their fastest rate in 14 years.
Let's speak to property expert Jonathan Rowland about all of this. Do you accept these findings then?
I do, yes. It's a very strange market out there at the moment.
What are you finding?
We're seeing, we had results yesterday from Halifax to say that prices have dropped around 2.5%, knocking about 5,000 off the average house price in just a month. So what we're seeing is a kind of perfect storm for the property market. And surprisingly, it's to do with rental and sales prices. And of course, they're very closely intertwined. Landlords keep an eye on property prices, not just the rent that they're receiving, but also the amount that their property value is going up or down. And actually, that's where most landlords make their money. It's not from the £100 profit a month that they might be getting on the rent. It's actually from the capital growth. If that starts to disappear and not grow, or worse still, be eroded, they're going to be quitting the market. Quitting the market means there's a smaller supply of property, and that will lead to an increase in rents.
In the property market, Jonathan, your view, the way the mortgages spiked after the Truss quasi-Kwarteng budget, they spiked quite sharply, but already now some of those fixed-term mortgages are coming down in price quite quickly.
They are. I mean, you're quite right. It was the Kwarteng budget that was really the catalyst for all of this. And we saw rates rise so rapidly, well over 6% for a 5-year fixed rate. It has now come down to just under 6, perhaps 5.9. But compare that to a year ago, it was half the price. So what it's done is to take buying power away from purchasers of property, be they owner-occupiers or investors. So the investor market is actually now quitting the market. We're seeing, at my company House by Fast, we're seeing huge amounts of inquiries from landlords. We had very few at the early part of this year or in the last 10 years, frankly. People have hung on to properties, but now they're exiting. And it's not just that prices are falling, but of course, landlords have been hit by the increase in mortgages, so that's eroded their profit. There have been tax changes that have hit them hard in the wallet. They're also suffering with increased maintenance costs. If you think they must pay for boiler, like all of us in homes, boiler repairs and roof repairs and managing agents' fees and so on. All of those things have been hit by inflation. We've seen huge inflation in the property building sector. Labour and materials have increased, partly due to COVID, supply and demand, etc. So they're being hit in every way. And of course, if they're looking at the value of their property and that's reducing, they're just going to think, why am I bothering? And they're going to sell.
Interesting. Yeah, it's all change, isn't it? And just wonder whether it's going to stabilise soon or how this story will end for everybody. I don't really know. But Jonathan Rowland, property expert and professional property buyer, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
I have to say, some people watching will be thinking, good, property prices are going down. I can't afford to get on the housing
that's
ladder.
True as well.
A lot of people still in their 30s living with mum and dad.
Yeah, not least when the government's back down on building 300,000, their own target, 300,000 new houses a year.
Absolutely. Now, after the break, we're live from Cumbria, where the first coal mine in the UK in decades has been approved after a long battle.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back at 7:25. Still to come on the programme this morning.
Is it possible to throw Christmas for your family this year for under £100? One thrifty mum thinks so. We're going to be speaking to her at 7:45.
I suppose you've got a small family.
Yeah.
What do you do if you've got, 16 round the table of
Tricky.
Christmas?
Yeah.
8:20 as the cold weather draws in, we'll be speaking to a charity to make sure the vulnerable have warm coats this winter and finding out how you can get involved. It's a really nice initiative, this.
Really
it's like
important.
recycling, but, for those who are out on this increasing number of people on the streets.
And it's got so cold,
It's so cold.
too.
It's awful.
And don't forget you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews.
Yes. OK, the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove is facing some criticism from environmentalists after approving planning permission for a brand new coal mine in Cumbria.
Though it's claimed the new mine will be used for steel production rather than power, the environmental organisation Friends of the Earth argue the decision will damage the fight against the climate crisis.
Well, our national reporter Ellie Costello joins us live from Cumbria with more developments on this. Ellie, what are locals saying?
Well, good morning to you both. And yes, it's been a green light for this controversial coal mine here in Cumbria, the first new coal mine in the UK in 30 years. And this decision has been already pushed back 3 times. It's a debate that's been going on here for over 2 years. But last night around 6:30, there was a 419-page decision published giving the go-ahead to this mine. It came from an independent planning inspector with approval from Michael Gove, the Secretary of State for Levelling Up. And I've been speaking to people here in Cumbria about what they make about this decision. Lots of people are red wall voters. They voted Tory for the first time in 2019, and they say that this is fantastic news. This is what they voted for. They are finally seeing levelling up in action. They say that the mine is going to produce 500 new jobs in Whitehaven, 1,500 jobs reportedly in the supply chain from the mine, and they say this is an area that needs much needed investment. It has much higher levels of unemployment than other areas in the country. But I've also been speaking to others that are absolutely appalled. There's been a mining community here for almost 700 years. It stopped in the 80s, and they say to open a new coal mine now feels like they are just going backwards. They feel like we are hypocrites on the world stage in terms of what the UK preaches, they say, about our green agenda. And that has kind of been echoed by the Shadow Climate Secretary Ed Miliband, who said the mine was no solution to the energy crisis and does not offer long-term jobs. Now, just to clarify, this isn't coal like you and I would think, that dirty coal of the 80s that people would put in their fires or would also be burned in power stations. This is coking coal, so this is used in the production of steel. Now, there has been some debate as to where this coking coal would be taken to. It is expected that 85% of the coking coal that comes out of the new Whitehaven mine will be exported mainly to Europe. But 2 companies that make steel here in the UK, British Steel and Tata, they say they actually plan to move to lower carbon production methods. They will not be touching this coking coal. I have just spoken to Mark Jenkinson MP, who's the local MP here, and he said that's a red herring. He says this coking coal will be used in the British steel industry. So it does seem as though all of those details still need to be ironed out, but this isn't the end of that story. There is still a lot of anger here in the local community. I think we could see some sort of protest or demonstration in Whitehaven a little bit later on, and ministers are bracing themselves for legal challenges which could come in the next few days.
Ellie, thanks very much indeed for that. Nigel's been in touch. He says the government thinks it's now OK to open a new coal mine. Something the vast majority of this country needs desperately is gas. When's the fracking going to start?
When I think about this coal mine, though, the steel which they would need for the industrial process would have to be imported. Yes. So that's going to be imported on emission-belching freighters.
An independent review of this had found that it was a carbon-neutral project, so you might as well have it in the UK and have jobs
and have at least 2,000 new jobs. I think that's the
calculation Michael
quite right. So good for Michael Gove.
Let us know your thoughts on all of this. We're going to take a quick break. After that, Freddie Gray and Nikki Hodgson are going to take us through your Thursday papers. Stay with us.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory.
twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the time is now 7:34. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with the fabulous Isabel Webster and Andrew Pearce, who's not so fabulous.
Not
and
true.
we're going to take a look at today's front pages.
Here's the Mail, your paper, Andrew. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, they say. A Christmas general strike as airport staff join rail, road and ambulance staff all walking out.
And the Telegraph go with Army furious. Soldiers are ordered to give up their Christmas over the strikes.
Here's the Express. They're focusing on Harry and Meghan's new Netflix docu-series out in around 30 minutes' time, saying stop this betrayal of our beloved Queen.
And The Guardian says the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has ignored climate warnings after he approved the first new coal mine in Britain for 30 years. Good.
And The Star say cry God for Harry. I don't know if I got that right. And right back, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good football person. Right back, Kyle Walker as the Three Lions prepare for their first clash against France's Kylian Mbappe.
World Cup, dear.
Yeah, sorry, get with it. Cry God for Harry. Okay, not sure I understand that, but
Now we're going to go in. We're going to go inside the papers. Joining us this morning is author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson and the deputy editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray. Cried God for Harry. It's the Henry Shakespeare reference, but Harry Kane.
I'm showing
of course.
I'm an absolute heathen.
Harry
not just a
Kane
football
is
heathen.
the captain of England.
Got it.
I think.
Yep. Kenneth Branagh. That's how I knew it.
Oh, there you go.
Kenneth Branagh. There you go.
Agincourt and all that.
Right,
Written by Kenneth Branagh, obviously. Yeah.
Yes.
Bard and football, I always associate them.
Yeah.
Right, Freddie, let's start with the Times. You want to talk about Harry and Meghan?
Yes. Well, there's a story in the Times about British TV would not have allowed the royal trailer because, as everybody now knows, Harry and Meghan's team, and they presumably signed off on it, spliced together images of them and images of other celebrities being harassed, but it was made to look like it's harassing Harry and Meghan, and it's sort of dishonest. And I think, because they do have very, very well-paid, sophisticated Hollywood producers, I think what they may be doing there is trying to make a sort of edgy statement about the way that the media manipulates our perception. Or it could just be that they're frauds and it's...
Well, I prefer the latter.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I just think they've underestimated the British press. I don't think they have any idea how thorough we are and how robust we are, and we know our stuff. And they put rubbish out there, and it was Rob Jobson saying, hang on a minute, I was at that event. I was on the Royal Protocol list.
It's basic fact-checking, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do find it quite funny that isn't one of the clips from Katie Price being handed. I quite like Katie Price to go after. That'd be quite amusing. That'd be a good twist in the tail, wouldn't it, if that happened next?
And the first big one of all those photographers, I think, poor Meghan. It was a Harry Potter premiere in 2011, 5 years before he'd met the wretched woman.
Yeah, I completely agree. They've completely underestimated people that care about this stuff. You know, if you say this has happened to you, we are going to fact-check it, so you better have it all straight.
She wants to tell her truth.
Do you think...
Start telling the truth.
Which is not literal, obviously.
Do you think they're trolling? Do you think they're winding people up?
Are they trolling us?
I think they are, because I think in their minds... I've done a piece in The Spectator this week about it, just to plug myself there. I think in their minds, they convince themselves that the angrier people get, the more they're right, that there is this terribly structural racist world that they are stinging. And so that's why they do. They continue to wind people up because it justifies their worldview.
Yes, I think there's an argument for that. I also think they really believe it. I do think they believe it. I don't think they're sort of on a sort of conspiracy theory or, you know, I think they're sipping the Kool-Aid 100%.
And possibly panicking because they're losing their clout.
£88 million will make them stop panicking.
Yeah, they have the money, but for Harry not to be part of the establishment, not to be a key part of the royal family, they ain't going to be at that coronation next year.
Do you think the king the king needs to move to remove them now?
Yeah, I do. And that's not about me supporting them or not supporting them. I think for the royal family to protect itself, if they want the royal family to survive, they have to distance themselves properly now.
They'll be wary about taking those titles away because there was a great sense of regret after removing HRH from Princess Diana. Then when she died in those terrible circumstances, the royal family very clumsily, the week of her funeral, said, have the HRH back. And the Spencer family said, no thanks, too late. So I think they're very scarred by that.
What I've been told is that if they go after Kate and Camilla...
What, so you mean Meghan and Harry?
The rumour has been that the Netflix show will go after Kate.
Definitely.
And the book will go after Camilla. And if that happens, then I think the palace will sort of kick into gear and say something.
Yeah, then it's war.
Well, the irony about talking about the women who marry into the royal institution and they're the ones that are then lambasting her. And the way they zoomed in on that picture of her inside Westminster Abbey. Oh.
Of Kate?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only picture they could find of her looking stern.
Yeah.
First time I've ever seen her looking anything other than delightful.
Appropriately sombre for the event, and then they can't try to reframe it. Yeah.
Just think about the climate in which Camilla Parker Bowles entered the royal family. I mean, my God, people used to say she was the most hated woman in Britain. She'd broken up the fairy tale marriage between Diana and Charles. There were those untrue reports that people used to throw loaves of bread at her in supermarkets. But she had a torrid time. She never complained.
Yeah.
No, but you'd think, well, Camilla's weathered that, so will this bother her? I mean, I don't know if it will, actually, from that point of view.
I think it will really upset Charles because he's very protective.
He's very
it might also be pretty boring. I think this first episode is going to be pretty boring. Because they want to talk about their love story, which, for me, is fairly boring.
Yeah.
And actually, they think people are interested in their worldview. I've listened, for my sins, to the Archetype podcast.
Have you? All of them or just one?
Not all of them. I couldn't quite get through all of them.
But she speaks in riddles.
I did it out of journalistic duty.
Of course.
And they are immensely boring.
Yeah.
Because she thinks she's a sort of intellectual and she's got great insights. And, of course, she doesn't really.
I don't think she's stupid, though.
She's not stupid, she's canny,
I think she's very canny.
But possibly sociopathic.
Oh, I think it's...
Yes.
She's proving that. Well,
definitely.
20 minutes till we find out just how boring or not that documentary is. Lots of people have been getting in touch, actually, haven't they, on this morning?
They have.
Karen in Lincoln says, I will not be watching Harry and Meghan. They wanted their privacy, so they've got it from me.
And Diana says, Harry can't think he'd ever be able to step back in this country again. He will be able to come back, but he's going to be a minor player.
Much maligned, yeah.
He's going to be more minor than the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester.
Yeah.
He won't be able to get into the airports because everything's on strike anyway.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, let's get into some serious news then, shall we? Nikki, let's talk about diabetes. This is Inside the Mail. We are the worst in the world for dealing with this very treatable disease.
Well, specifically for dealing with type 2 diabetes in adolescents and young adults. So it's quite shocking, this story, actually. It says the rise of type 2 diabetes among adolescents and young adults is greater in Britain than anywhere else in the world. And there's been nearly a 4-fold increase in younger people diagnosed with it since the 90s to now.
And is that because, Nikki, we are becoming increasingly the most obese country in Europe?
Well, I don't see how it can't be that. The story doesn't really do any analysis of why. It's just looking at how the study was kind of formed. But yeah, it's basically saying that it has to be because of people's lack of weight control, people, like the kind of things people are eating, the lack of exercise they're getting, the sedentary lifestyle that, you know, more people kind of engaging with. But yeah, I do think it is kind of shocking that it's very much younger people.
Yeah, I think that's shocking. In school age.
School age.
There's not enough sport.
And we know that the younger you get something like diabetes, the less chance you have of getting on top of it in some ways. You know, it depends what kind of support you get at the time, but it's conditioning you to a very short life and a very unwell life as well.
If I had £1 for every time I've been told by an MP or a local council, what we're going to do is stop takeaway, fast food takeaways, and sweet shops, being very close to the proximity of a school, it never happens.
No. But I mean, then on the other hand, we've got food banks and we've got children starving. It's just kind of absolutely mad how we've got this dichotomy of people that are very underfed and the people that are eating rubbish.
Well, the thing is that the rubbish is the cheapest.
Yes.
And that's
the bountiful food,
those most deprived have the worst diets because it's the most affordable. Freddie, can we talk about the German coup? This is an extraordinary story yesterday.
It's great, isn't it? It's like a sort of... Well, it's not great, sorry, it's very terrifying, but it's like a sort of Stieg Larsson novel, but set in Germany, where, of course, we know the far right has some history. But I like the Metro's headline.
Very good.
Bang to rights.
Yes, they're very good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
And it is the story of this armed plot involving this very eccentric aristocrat called Prince Heinrich VIII, who's 71 years old, and whose family describe him as a doddery old man or something. I can't remember what they said. Oh, yes, a confused old man trapped in conspiracy theory misconceptions. So he's apparently involved.
And they were literally going to hold up the German Parliament.
They were going to storm the Reichstag, yeah.
With guns?
With guns and everything. Apparently inspired by January the 6th protesters, but I think the links there are a bit tenuous. It's just that they found that some of them believed in QAnon conspiracy theories.
What's the January 6th protest?
Outside the Capitol Hill.
Oh, I see, that one.
Yeah.
Because I think, being a good Catholic, I think January 6th is 12th day of Christmas.
Well,
It's having a day off.
We three kings, that's what I was thinking. How does that fit in here?
We need to reclaim January 6th.
I think we do.
For the Epiphany,
Very important. Yeah. So what's going to happen to... I mean, he's just a mad old eccentric. Is he going to be banged up for a...
I think so, but there is obviously some far-right activity going on in Germany, which they're worried about. There's going to be a trial, and I think in 2020, some extremists sort of attacked a government building in Berlin, I think.
Right.
And so, I think everybody loves a kind of dark plot conspiracy story, so this is very exciting for people. But it could just be a crazy old man and a few loons.
Well, let's hope that's what entertaining. It is. Nikki, can we talk about authors' pay? This is in the Times. It's something that I'm sure lots of our contributors are concerned about.
Yeah, I'm an author, and it is concerning. So basically, it's saying that the average pay for authors has fallen by 60% to £7,000 a year. That's how much on average we make a year. So the idea of being a full-time author is just not... It's not an option.
Unless you're J.K. Rowling, it's just not...
It's not an option for the majority of people. Not that... I mean, I don't want to be a full-time author. I don't enjoy it, actually. As much as I am a writer, it's a pain, an absolute pain. So I would always rather do other jobs as well. But what it's really saying is that, you know, there's kind of no social mobility in writing anymore. And there's such a pressure from publishing houses, or an interest from publishing houses, to publish stories from people from different backgrounds. But, you know, if you come from a background where there's no way you can live on that money because you haven't got private income or something else going on, those stories won't be told. So I think what's really sad is the idea that it's just going to be whittled down to a very few privileged people that do it, or like I do it early in the mornings before I do the work.
Why do they say it's getting worse? Is it because people are buying fewer books?
No, profits of books are actually going up and publishing houses' profits are going up, but the deals they do for authors are getting worse. Like, for example, I only get 9.5% from the sale of my books.
You've got a very good agent.
90+% goes to everybody else. So when you say it like that, would you give 90% of your pay to somebody else for what you did? It doesn't make any sense. The music industry is very similar in that regard. So, yeah, it's a shame because you don't really get advances anymore. People used to rely on an advance in order to take time off work or do something else, you know, to write a book. And those are kind of diminishing. So, yeah, book sales are buoyant. So, yeah, authors are just getting a really bad deal.
Unfortunately, they can't go on strike.
Nobody cares if we go on strike, I think.
Can't bring in the army to
write the books.
Yeah, right.
We could bring in AI, maybe, because I don't know if you've seen this week, there's been lots of examples of AI bots writing content. So the kind of, the content that you see on most blogs or, for businesses, that will be written by AI in the next few years, not by humans.
The Newswire AI, the news report AI is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's shockingly good, yeah.
Don't say it's better than what we do.
It's not better, but it's
Daily Mail.
It's competent.
I was going to say, what newspapers was I going to choose? I was going to
What I
choose
take
another
from
one.
that is it's worth working for the publishing houses. Rather than
Be on the other side of it. Don't be the author, exactly.
We've got to leave it there. Nikki Hodgson, Freddie Gray, thank you so much. We'll have more from both of them just after 8:30.
Now, let's remind you of today's top stories.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex's new docu-series premieres today, with 3 episodes being released in around 13 minutes' time. The show looks to set out Meghan's treatment by the press, challenge allegations the Duchess bullied staff, and delve into their relationships with the royal household.
And unions are calling on the government to engage in meaningful talks amid the wave of public sector strikes sweeping across the UK. Border Force staff, the latest to announce industrial action slap bang over Christmas, with postal workers, nurses and paramedics planning to strike in the coming weeks. The Prime Minister has promised tough new laws to limit the impact of the action.
And motorists are being warned of dangerous driving conditions as a cold snap hits the UK. Icy conditions may result in some slips and falls, and there may be icy patches on untreated roads, pavements and cycle paths. The RAC are urging drivers to check their tyres and to carry a blanket in their cars in case they need it.
Now, Christmas can be an expensive time for all of us, and many families across Britain are investing lots of time and money into finding the perfect presents for their loved ones.
However, this won't be the case for our next guest. Her name is Jess Barkley, and she's opted to celebrate a Christmas free of consumerism and excess. And she joins us now with all of her tips. I have to say, I sometimes feel a little bit green behind, not with envy, but sort of just feeling a bit nauseous as we approach Christmas, because we've all got so much stuff, we're all so strapped for cash, and yet here we are, stuffing ourselves full of food, presents we don't need, and spending money we don't have. So how do you avoid it, Jess?
Oh, it's a long list. It's I used to hate Christmas. And I think people think I'm just naturally this big lover of Christmas. I used to hate Christmas, and actually the first Christmas I loved was the one after my mum passed away. Because no one is going to question how you want to do Christmas when you're grieving, are they? That no one was like, you do what you want to do. And so I set my own rules, and that is how I've done it ever since. We were very clear with our daughter from her very first Christmas how things were going to pan out. Every year I tell her how I wrote to Father Christmas on her first Christmas here and said, we would like you to do secondhand. Feel free to pick stuff up from my cousins. Feel free to go to charity shops. Don't worry, Father Christmas. We don't need lots of stuff. And she gets 3 presents from us. We do it for birthday and Christmas. It was enough for baby Jesus. He got 3 gifts from the wise men. So that's how we do it with her, is she gets these 3 gifts. And there's no budget as such for those 3 gifts. This year and last year have been particularly financially difficult for us. So I've spent, I think we're at £25.50 for her presents, including what Father Christmas has spent. The whole thing. 20 quid of that is a big trampoline with a net round it. That £20 is going directly to charity. The people we bought it from, their daughter suffers from something, so they're going to donate the money to the charity because it was her trampoline. So in theory, I've only spent £5.50, and 50 pence of that was another charity shop. So in theory, I've only given £5 to shops, as it were, for her gifts. We do Secret Santa with everyone in the family, and it has taken a bit of time. I think a lot of my friends are like, wow, how have you done it so cheaply? And it was adjusting. If you've got traditions within your family that involve a lot of money, each year it's adjusting it down, adjusting the expectations. And for us, it's about family, it's about cuddles, because at Christmas, you can cuddle on the sofa and call it a festive event. If you do that the rest of the year, you're called lazy.
What about
we make it about the fun experiences.
Yep. Now, what about your little girl? She's presumably very happy with the presents you get, but she probably knows her school chums get an awful lot more.
So I don't know if I'm very lucky or I've just done a very good job parenting. I think I'd like to say I've just done a really good job parenting, but I'm sure she's perfect. As far as I'm concerned, she's the greatest kid in the world. And we do a lot in our family about charity, about community. We always have a tradition, sort of late November, we'll do a clear out of her toys, but it won't be, we need to get rid of stuff. It'll be, who else could benefit from this? So she also understands that by getting rid of some of her bits that she doesn't play with, she's actually gifting it to someone else. So I think that really helps. But I'm really honest with her and I say, if you have less toys, mummy has less to clear up, which means mummy can spend more time with you. We can spend more time at the play park. We can go on more adventures because I don't need to worry as much about work. Unfortunately, last 2 years, yes, I've had to worry about work however much I spend. I could spend nothing and still have to worry about finances because rent, etc. But I've just been honest with her. And I said, would you like, when we're in a shop, would you like this bit of plastic tat that will end up in landfill? She knows exactly what landfill is. She's very eco as well. She's my little 5-year-old vegan.
Oh my gosh.
She's very eco. So what about the lunch?
Yeah, so she understands all the
eating cardboard for lunch. God love her.
She's absolutely brilliant.
Did she choose to be vegan or did mum and dad persuade her to be vegan?
So Daddy's not vegan. I went vegan about 2 years ago,
right.
And I didn't expect them to follow me. And because she's got Daddy and she could go with Daddy, she's had one thing that she made her want to consider going back, and that was because at school they did Fish Finger Friday,
right.
And the vegetarians had vegetarian fish fingers. But it took them a while to find a box that said vegan fish fingers. But the school found vegan fish fingers. And we always made sure we had vegan fish fingers at home on a Friday. But I said to her, if you want to have the fish at school on a Friday, but be vegan the rest of the time, that's cool too. You choose. So, yeah,
well,
she just kind of copied me. But she did have Daddy as an example of not doing that. So she could have copied either of us.
There we go, Jess
She just
Barkley with her
prefers me.
top tips on how not only to have a thrifty Christmas, but how to turn your kid vegan as well. I have to say, my top tip for a thrifty Christmas is to have a really expensive Christmas list. So basically, when I get asked, say, for example, my brother, he writes for a living, and he asked me, I know he can't afford a Chanel handbag for me, so if I say that, it's not going to happen. So then I just write me a poem.
Oh.
And I'd be just as happy with something. Honestly, there's nothing I want that most people can afford, so you might as well just give me nothing.
Does he write nice poems?
Yeah, beautiful poems, yeah.
Does he earn as much as these other authors, £6,000 a year?
He doesn't earn a lot from writing, yeah. It's just a sad fact, isn't it? Anyway, we're going to talk more. Gosh, it's only 6 minutes to go until the Netflix Sussex's docu-series drops. We're going to be reflecting on that, and we're going to bring you the weather as well.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have issued yellow weather warnings covering ice and across northern Scotland, some snow for the next couple of days. Because it's from the north, if you follow the isobars, that's where our air is coming from, northerly winds. Meaning a frosty start for the vast majority this morning. Say potentially a slippery start as well. Wherever we've got any showers with that cold air and the cold ground, it could be icy. Parts of Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England and eastern England too. And snow showers still coming in across northern Scotland. For many, it's a sunny day today, but it will be cold. And later on, a bit more cloud coming into southeast Scotland, northeast England. That is going to bring more in the way of wet weather, a wintry mix with some snow likely, especially over hills. Temperatures 2 or 3 for the vast majority at best. For much of the day, we're going to be struggling around or below freezing. Just that little area of wet weather coming into northeast England this evening needs to be watched, could provide a covering of snow. Certainly there'll be some over the North York moors. And again, wherever we've got any kind of shower, be it rain, sleet or snow, it could turn icy, and certainly more snow showers continuing through the night across northern Scotland. Again, a frosty one tonight, temperatures down to -2, -3, -4, even in towns and cities, and lower in rural spots. Friday, again, potentially icy where we've got some showers. The showers over West Wales, perhaps southwest England, Northern Ireland, some snow here over the hills. The wind's a bit lighter perhaps on Friday, but still strong enough to blow more snow showers over northern Scotland. again for the vast majority. Tomorrow will just be crisp, sunny and cold, with temperatures struggling to get much above 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. Doesn't get any warmer through the weekend. It stays cold, frosty, further wintry showers, therefore a continued ice risk. Sunny spells, but also some freezing fog. Keep up to date with those warnings on the Met Office website.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Well, it's liftoff. Harry and Meghan's Netflix series is released amid a predictable storm of controversy.
Good morning. It is 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Well, the first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new docu-series have now dropped on Netflix. The trailers promise the inside story of how those Sussexes stepped away from their royal duties, Harry referring to a dirty game.
In other news, Border Force staff at major airports, including Heathrow, have announced they'll strike from the 23rd of December. Walkouts threaten Christmas holidays, with airports reportedly being told to cancel 30% of flights on strike days. The Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, told us this morning the government will work with the Army to try and respond to the strikes.
This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts.
And the first coal mine in the UK in decades has been approved. The government says the decision is entirely consistent with its policies on cutting carbon emissions, but environmental campaigners say it will undermine climate targets.
Plus, the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has announced he'll not be standing in the next general election. Follows comments from members of his local party that he was not fit to represent them after appearing on I'm a Celebrity.
No surprise there. And don't forget to get in touch the usual way via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let us know where you're watching or where you're listening to us from.
Well, it is our top story this morning. The first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new Netflix series have just dropped in the last 2 minutes on Netflix amid continued controversy.
Well, we know the trailers promised to reveal a war against Meghan and show the true story of why the Sussexes stepped back from their royal duties.
Well, we can speak now to our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who is already watching that docu-series for us in a theatre in central London. You've set up a special room, haven't you, Cameron, with a panel of royal watchers. Anything you can reveal so far?
Certainly have, Isabel. Welcome to GB News' Royal Reaction Room. Well, after months of speculation, 2 highly controversial trailers, today is the day we finally get to see, the world gets to see, what Harry and Meghan perceive as their whole truth. Now, I am joined to start with by royal historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Manku, who's going to be watching alongside me, alongside a number of other royal commentators. Rafe, first of all, before we start watching this, as it's just dropped on Netflix, the first of 3 episodes, the trailers have already proved incredibly controversial for a number of reasons. What was your first reaction to them?
Well, if the trailers are anything to go by, it doesn't really give one too much hope for the veracity of the content, perhaps, of the actual Netflix series, because what we've seen really are a lot of stage photographs using images which actually have no connection or very little connection to the story that's being told. And it's all part of this attempt, really, I think, rather than speaking truth to power, speaking lies to power, I think, in terms of trying to portray an image, to portray their version of the truth, and using whatever means they can to advance their own agenda, whether or not it has any grounding in reality.
You mentioned their truth. Of course, there's always 2 sides to every story, isn't there? And the palace is in a bit of an awkward position because normally they don't really comment on things like this.
That's right. Well, we're here in Leicester Square, the home of cinema, for this screening, but just 20 minutes walk away, similar screenings taking place at Buckingham Palace and indeed also at Kensington Palace with royal aides, perhaps also the royal family, seeing what's going to happen. Now, they're going to be wondering, do empty vessels make the loudest sound, which I think many of us will be expecting? Is there much new to say here? Or will this be a catalogue of calumnies against the royal family? Time will tell. We understand that the King and the Prince of Wales have briefed their royal aides that if anything unfair or unjust is said, that a rebuttal will be forthcoming, although it's expected perhaps that they'll wait until the second tranche of episodes, the final 3, come next week.
Rafe, thank you very much for speaking to me. We'll be with you for the rest of the day, really, won't we, here in GB News' Royal Reaction Room. We better get watching, and as soon as we have any more details, we'll bring it straight to you.
That's it, Cameron. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, also joining us now is socialite, aristocrat and friend of the royal family, Lady Victoria Harvey. Morning to you. This is a pretty sad day for someone like you who loves the royal family, knows members of the royal family, because this can only cause damage to the royal family.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very sad that they feel that they have to make money from dissing the royal family. I think it's something that's never really been done in this way. And it's going to be very hard for Prince Harry to come back, I think, after this.
Difficulty too, what does the House of Windsor do? We know the classic strategy never complain, never explain.
Right.
If there are very serious allegations made about institutionalised racism,
they will need
They have to say
put
something,
the facts straight. You know, just after what happened with the Oprah Winfrey interview, and a lot of things that Meghan Markle said were actually not true. So it will be difficult. Like, what do? They will have to set the record straight themselves.
It's only 3 months since Her Majesty died. 3 months today. And the timing of all of that can't have been lost on them. They seemed to be very respectful of Her Majesty the Queen, didn't they? Meghan seemed to be very much in her pocket.
I mean, I really thought him spending all that time with his family would have really sort of made him realise, you know, wow, you know, this is what his family is and his country, and just change his whole view on everything. Unfortunately, I think the presence of having his wife around him, I think it's very toxic, and it's just a very negative energy around him, unfortunately.
he, of course, is the royal. He could say to his wife.
And people loved Harry.
They
you know?
did. They
he was
really
like
did.
really like one of the favourites, wasn't
Yeah,
he? They
I
loved
agree.
him, and you know, since he's been with Meghan, it's just people really, you know, they don't care about him anymore.
Except, right, just last week we had this incident, didn't we, at Buckingham Palace when Gozi Fulani, this charity worker who's invited to the palace, unearthed that there is racism in the way that the royal household...
I feel that was a little bit of a set-up.
But do you think that has vindicated the Sussexes to an extent? I mean, is there a truth to be told here? Does the royal family need to have a bit of a wake-up call about structural racism?
I think that whole situation, you know, that's not her real name, and I feel like that was set up. I think that lady, you know, being in her 80s, it's a different era, and I hear she's actually got hearing problems. So imagine, you know, she's elderly, she's got hearing problems. The woman apparently recorded her. The woman is also a supporter of BLM, which we now know is, you know, operated very illegally on many things. So I do feel like it was a bit of a set-up.
Do you think it's damaged the royal family?
What, the recent?
Yeah.
The lady with the fake name?
My take, I think the palace threw Lady Hussey under a bus.
No, I think that was very unfair. I don't think it was dealt with correctly. Look, if she really does, you know, she's got a hearing problem, she's elderly, like, I understand what she was trying to say in a nice way, but people are just so fragile and delicate nowadays. And if you look at that lady's Twitter account, it does say, you know, for Caribbean, you know, descent. So I think it was completely blown out of proportion.
Gosh, well, listen, we will find out exactly what the Sussexes say, but I suppose the question really will be, you know, with the King being egged yesterday, the second time since the Queen died in September, is this a pivotal moment in the monarchy in this country? Are the monarchy under threat? Do you think this kind of docu-series will galvanise support for them, or do you think it could actually undermine them?
No, I think it'll get support. I don't think people think much of Harry and Meghan.
Queen never got egged.
Worldwide, really, I don't think people I know in America just kind of look at them as a bit of a joke. And here as well, it's just like it's so inappropriate what he's doing. It's like they moved to America to get away from the press, didn't they? And then as soon as they got there, all they did was sort of plan and stage this whole money-making machine to diss his family. And I believe, like, she has been at the back of this plan from the very beginning. You just knew when Oprah Winfrey was at their wedding, you knew that, oh goodness, here we go, there's going to be an Oprah
She'd met her once
interview.
before, and she had a really prominent...
Yeah, and she had all her sort of fake friends that she'd only just met, and she didn't invite all her, you know, old friends. I mean, I know people that were at her first wedding, and they don't have very good things to say about her. So I don't believe she is a good person at all.
Right, Lady Victoria Harvey, not holding back. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your views. Socialite, of course, an aristocrat and friend of the royal family. Thank you.
Well, Border Force staff across the country, I'm afraid, have announced they're going on strike too, 8 days from the 23rd to the 31st of December.
Yes, the disruption could see 30% of flights on walkout days being cancelled, which will throw people's Christmas holidays into jeopardy.
It comes amid mounting pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to get on and introduce those laws he keeps promising to curb strike action.
Well, the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, says the military will be called in to help.
This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts. We're the only party that would introduce this legislation. By the way, it is important. It is going to be introduced. You always hope not to do this, right? You know, you hope that you can have sensible working relationships. But it looks like there's been a breakdown of those, and some of the unions are determined to spoil Christmas for everybody.
Right, well, here with us now to discuss that more is the former Liberal Democrat Minister, Norman Baker, regular on the show. Look, this is becoming a bit of a problem for the government, isn't it?
We've got a winter of discontent, which reminds me of 1979, when I remember working in Leicester Square with bags up to the roof of rubbish. We haven't got the dustmen on strike, but we've got everybody else on strike so far, it seems to me. And the government responds to talk about bringing legislation. It doesn't actually deal with the core of the problem. Why are people going on strike? They're not asking that question. They're trying to suppress it as if that's going to solve the problem, and it isn't actually. I don't think minimum requirements, service levels can work. You can't force people to go to work and do what you want them to do.
Hang on, they do it in Europe.
I don't think it's going to work. I know they do.
They do it in Europe.
Well,
France and Germany, and these are members of the great European Union.
They may be doing it in France and Germany, but I don't think it's going to work over here. I don't think you can force people. Well, because I don't think you can force people to turn up to work and do what you want them to do. They'll either turn up to work and not work properly, or they'll phone in sick or something else. I just think we don't want this antagonism between employers and employees. What we have to do is try and get a consensus of how we want to go forward. People understand if they're workers, there's a difficult situation with inflation. They understand the economy is in a difficult spot. They understand that they can't always have inflation plus increases at the moment. But the government's got to understand that people have got a cost of living crisis and have got to pay their bills. And somewhere in the middle of that is an answer. And having one side pitched against the other isn't the way forward.
But strikes only make it worse.
Well, they do, but so does the government make it worse by threatening to clamp down on civil liberties.
I mean, Rishi Sunak has said he would do that for emergency services, things like A&E and ambulance drivers. And, it's already illegal for the army or for the police to go on strike.
Yes.
If it comes to life-saving, life-critical situations, presumably the public would have sympathy. People are very concerned that the ambulances won't be able to attend to their loved ones in their hour of...
Well, as I understand it, those who run ambulance services have said that they will attend people having heart attacks or strokes or other such emergencies such as that. So in a sense, that's been covered already.
Yeah, but if they say that, Norman, but they can't give that guarantee. We spoke to a member of the Unite Trade Union here last week. You cannot guarantee that people won't die as a result of ambulance workers withdrawing their labour, because there's not going to be enough of them driving the vans.
Well, can I just come to Gillian Keegan? Because Gillian Keegan's answer the government's answer appears to be bringing in the military, which the military don't want to be pulled into this, by the way. They want to be kept out of these things. But the military don't know how to deal with emergencies and ambulances. The fact is, ambulances these days are highly automated machines where people are treated as they go from where they're picked up to the hospital. They then sit, by the way, for hours outside the hospital because there's no beds for them. So what happens in the ambulance is actually very important. The driving of the ambulance is almost neither here nor there. So putting the military in it isn't going to help that at all.
They have got a medical corps in the army who are sophisticated, and they did build those extraordinary Nightingale hospitals in a matter of days.
Well, you can build a hospital, that, if I may say so, is quite a low-level skill. I mean, what we're talking about is using highly sophisticated equipment in ambulances for trained paramedics. And the military, with the best will in the world, that's not their skill set.
Do you support these strikers, the Border Force staff withdrawing labour over Christmas and the trained staff?
I don't support people going on strike and damaging the public good. I don't support that, Andrew. But what I do think is that the government's approach, which is antagonistic, is making matters worse rather than better.
Do you think it is antagonistic? Because just genuinely, Rishi Sunak at the dispatch box yesterday kept repeating the word that they were trying to be reasonable. And this, they point to the fact that they've taken the advice of the independent pay body, particularly in relation to nurses, and actually gone ahead and given them surpluses and paid them extra last year compared to other sectors in the public sector because of the work they did through COVID.
Well, the pay in the public sector has dropped in recent times, and the pay bodies which reported by and large way before the inflation spiral that we're now into, and therefore, to some extent, they're out of date. And in terms of the real unions, which I'm familiar with that particular issue, for ages, there wasn't a discussion about the pay level at all. There was skirting around the edges about terms and conditions, which need to be sorted out, by the way. skirting around the edges. And it's only recently the Treasury signed off some sort of deal. So for weeks there was talks about nothing very much because the Treasury hadn't agreed what the pay rise would be. We've now got to a situation where they've offered, in the rail union's case, 4% plus 4%. That is way below inflation. And at the same time, the government is asking, rightly in my view, for an amendment to terms and conditions for the rail workers to get rid of some of the ridiculous arrangements which have been in place since 1919 about race day working and so on. These all have to go, and the government's right to challenge that. But the deal must be, in the rail terms, is that you get rid of the terms and conditions which are so antediluvian.
Which the union, by the way, is refusing to.
Well, I know they are, but because of the negotiations. But you get rid of those terms and conditions, and in turn you give them a decent pay rise. That's got to be the deal. We'll get there in the end. That's the solution to this.
OK, well, Norman Baker, thank you very much indeed for giving us your take on that story. We're going to stay with politics, though, now, and take you to Newmarket, where we're going to speak to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, talking about Matt Hancock, of course, rumours that he's decided not to stand in the next election because of lack of support from his local Conservative Party. Let's have a listen to what he's had to say.
It's been a huge privilege to serve in Parliament and to serve the people of West Suffolk, and I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who's supported me both in Suffolk and in government since then. I've increasingly come to the view that it's so important to engage with people about politics, about how our country is run, not just through Parliament, but also through new and innovative ways. And I look forward to doing more of that.
The not surprising mea culpa from...
Released to TikTok, no less.
Yes, and he's refusing, by the way, to do any interviews with people like us or radio or television, and I thought he wanted to find a way to communicate with people. Anyway, our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, joins us now from Newmarket in West Sussex, which is currently Matt Hancock's constituency, but not for very much longer.
Yeah, very good morning to you both. From a bitterly cold, it must be said, Newmarket this morning. Now, only a matter of days ago, Matt Hancock was insisting he was going to stand at the next election, despite losing the Conservative whip and despite appearing, of course, in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, eating all sorts of kangaroos, penises and all that sort of stuff. I'm not entirely sure I can say that at 8 o'clock in the morning, but that is what happened to the Conservative MP down under. But in the end, he is not going to stand at the next election. Now, why is that? Well, it seems in some ways it's actually not been much of his choice, because his local Conservative Association met at the end of last month, Andrew, and they decided that, frankly, he was not fit to represent them, that they had no confidence in him, and that he probably faced deselection. So I think rather than be pushed, if you like, Matt Hancock decided it was best to walk away at this stage. Now, he will continue to represent this constituency of Newmarket up until the next general election, which still could be 2 years away. And we're told that he is not going to, in the interim time, appear in any more reality TV shows, and no more Strictly Come Dancing or Dancing on Ice or whatever is on the TV.
Cameras.
But yeah, people here this morning, in the local cafes, frankly, aren't that concerned about this, it must be said. I think they've pretty much lost hope in Matt Hancock. They're far more concerned about the strikes that you've just been talking about and the impact that's going to have on people here in Newmarket, indeed elsewhere around the country in this month, and indeed how cold the weather is. So I'm not entirely sure, while he's making headlines here in the local papers, that he is the talk of the town. But it is the end of a political career. He's been an MP for 12, 13 years now, served in Cabinet, obviously as Health Secretary. That will come to an end. And people will be watching about what he does next, because, he is a bit of a household name. He did pretty well in the jungle, and there will be intrigue for what life looks like after politics for the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock.
Indeed, we managed to persuade Norman Baker to stay just to give us his reaction, because you worked with Matt Hancock, didn't you?
I did, though he didn't make much impact on me, I don't think, in terms of his impact in government. Look, I mean, was he post or did he jump? I think he would have been eased out by his constituency, his constituency party, who were not very enthused by his appearance on this rather tacky show on television. Matt Hancock, honestly, he's not going to make a career out of going around TV studios, I don't think.
Can't you see him on Strictly?
No, I can't. No, I mean,
dance. Did you not see that episode? He'd be out in the first week.
Well, Ed Balls couldn't dance, but he did quite well. And
Well, he
Ant
did do
Whittaker
quite-
was the worst dance I've ever seen, apart from John Sargent. And
Well,
she
it's
did
about
rather well.
It's about style. I don't think Matt Hancock's got the style, to be honest with you. I mean, Hancock's half baked is my initial reaction, and I have to say, to be quite blunt about it, good riddance to bad rubbish.
Do you think, finally, Norma, do you think Parliament should have a rule where MPs are not allowed to abandon their constituents?
I think it's
3 or 4 weeks to earn £400,000.
I absolutely do. I mean, if you did it in August when the House isn't sitting, you might think it's OK, although there are still constituents writing in August. But I mean, to do it when the House is sitting, it's just absolutely beyond the pale.
Well, don't mind you, Boris Johnson, when the leadership election was announced, when Liz Truss stood down, he was off in the Barbados or something, wasn't he?
Well, and he got his comeuppance, didn't he, in the end?
Lots of MPs go. That was what I'm trying to say. It's not just...
Should he resign now?
Yes, he should, absolutely.
And trigger a by-election?
Absolutely, he should resign now. He's not doing his constituents any good, is he?
Right.
He's bringing his constituents into disrepute.
He won't, though, of course.
He won't, and that's probably the right thing to do for the party.
Yes, because they do
Judging
another
my last
by-election.
week's
Because they're not very good at by-elections at the moment. Boris.
Exactly. Right, we're going to take a break. We'll probably carry on this discussion during
Sure we
it.
will.
And after that, we'll be talking about temperatures dropping below zero. You don't need to tell us, oh, I'm so cold this morning. We'll be finding out what local communities are doing to try and beat the freeze.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. It is 8:25, still to come on the programme this morning.
It's Christmas jumper day.
Can't you tell?
Where's mine? At 8:45, we'll be finding out how you can help out today to raise money for Save the Children, with the government agreeing to match every donation this year.
That's fantastic. He's watching it all this morning for us at 9 o'clock. Our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, will be giving us his reaction to that first episode of Harry and Meghan on Netflix.
And you can join in any of our discussions. You know how? You email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Or you can tweet us at GB News.
Well, temperatures set to drop to below freezing this week, with more than 3 million low-income households who are now going to struggle to heat their homes.
The UK Health and Security Agency has issued a cold weather alert, recommending that vulnerable people wear extra layers to protect themselves from plummeting temperatures.
Charities are stepping up to help people struggling during the cold weather. Our reporter, Rosie Wright, is with the charity Wrap Up London. Good morning, Rosie.
A very good morning to you both, and welcome into the headquarters of the campaign to wrap up London. This is sort of a sorting depot in East London where hundreds of coats, here we go, we can see how they're sorted here between age group 6 to 8, 4 to 5, 1 to 3 years, and coats like this donated. This will go to a child under the age of 1. I'll put that back in the right place. Of course, it is bitterly cold. Temperatures have absolutely plummeted. We're in a severe weather warning. Temperatures below freezing overnight, and we know families are struggling to do things like put the heating on, deciding, of course, how they're going to manage those really steep energy bills. Well, over 10,000 Londoners have been the recipient of a warm coat this winter already. John can tell us a lot more. John, you're the man in charge. Just tell me what's going on in this room.
Hello, Rosie. This is our main sorting room. So all the coats that get donated coming here, they get sorted by gender, they get sorted by size, and ready for dispatch out to something like 130 charities and community groups across the city.
So we should have a quick look over here. So we've got them sorted by age group here.
We've got age group here. We've got by size over here for women's coats and such like. As we start slowly moving around to the room, we've got the men's and we've got the boys' coats ready.
There's a little box here we probably should just mention that's labelled treasure. So, of course, when people donate a coat, occasionally something's left in the pocket.
Yes, we found all sorts of things in the pockets. Sometimes they're quite important things like mobile phones and such like, but sometimes they're quite small, quite sweet things that are little parts of people's lives. But sometimes it's something that's actually really quite important to somebody. And we found a photograph that was sort of quite dog-eared, and you and I might have thought it wasn't anything. It went in the treasure box, and within a day we had a lady phone up and said, have we found such a photograph? And it was the only picture she possessed of her son who had passed away 20 years beforehand. So the treasure box is real treasure.
It is important.
It could be really important for people.
And let's go through. I want you to have a little look round through the rest of this depot. So how many people donate their coats, and where are you collecting them from?
About 20,000 people collect their coats across the city, and we collect them firstly from tube and rail stations at the beginning of the campaign, and then something like about 311 at the moment community groups have local collections. They may be offices, churches, schools, faith groups, and they all actually end up coming in here. So we're
and this is how they're all sorted then. We've got bags and bags and bags.
Yes, so once we've sorted them out, we prepare orders, and sometimes these orders can be very, very specific for individual charities and community groups. Then they come up here and the charities collect them, or we may be delivering to them.
One of the problems you told me is that because you get your coats donated from tube stations and train stations, donations have been down this year.
Yes, unfortunately they have. As I mentioned, we normally start a big collection at train tube stations, anything up to 1,500 coats an hour. So we would expect 17,000 coats in that launch week. Unfortunately, that got hit by rail and tube strikes and such like. So those donations on that period were down to about 2,500 from 15,000. But local people in London have been absolutely brilliant. They've put some extra efforts in. We've extended the campaign by a further 10 days. Another 50 or 60 organisations have been collecting locally to try and fill that bit of a void.
And so there we go, all of these bags full of coats that will be donated to either specific individuals or charities. I think it's over 20,000 coats that have been donated just this winter.
Oh, it's such a good idea. Rosie, thanks very much for that. It's really sort of, confronting, isn't it? Coming into work in the middle of the night as we do, and you do see people out on the streets and you do think, my goodness me, in this temperature.
And it had been so mild.
Yeah.
And that's been such a relief for so many people who are really worrying about how they're going to afford to heat their houses this year. And now we really are in a cold snap.
And we all have too many coats. I do anyway. We need to find a good home for them. Thanks for that, Rosie. We're going to take a break. After that, Freddie Great, Nikki Hodgson back with us to go through the Thursday papers one more time.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:35. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew. Yes. Let's take a look at your front pages.
So the Times is going with the fact a third of flights could be cancelled this Christmas as airport workers are the latest group to go on strike.
The Telegraph's going with army fury as soldiers are ordered to give up their Christmas over the strikes.
And the Express focuses on Harry and Meghan's much vaunted Netflix documentary. It's out, and they make the point that they should stop the betrayal of what they say is our beloved Queen.
Here's The Guardian says Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has ignored climate warnings after he approved the first new coal mine in Britain for 30 years.
And the Mirror lead on, of course they do, Matt Hancock quitting the world of politics and setting his sights on what he calls exciting possibilities. Strictly, maybe?
Let's go inside the papers one last time then with Freddie and Nikki. And Freddie Gray, you've chosen this inside the Telegraph because Putin did one of his uncommon updates on the situation in Ukraine.
Yes, yeah, and I thought worth highlighting, there's still a war going on.
Yes.
It's not just war between the Windsors. What I particularly like about this statement yesterday was that Putin said, we haven't gone mad. We realise what nuclear weapons are. And, I mean, is that comforting? Or, you know, if you say you aren't mad, isn't that sort of slightly proof?
Well, I see, and I think I fundamentally disagree with the statement. I think he's as mad as a bunch of
He's
frogs.
sounding pretty mad because his statements are sounding pretty desperate, although the good news is that he's backpedalling on the threat of nuclear war, we think under pressure, or certainly it suggests here, under pressure from China and India, who were his sort of key allies, really, when he launched the invasion. So I think China have made it clear that they will not tolerate any nuclear weapons or nuclear strikes. And it seems that Russia has accepted that that's true. So fingers crossed, no nuclear Armageddon.
Good. And pleased to hear it. That's
one less thing to worry about.
Yes, but I did find it amusing that he did reference Liz Truss yesterday, saying that British Prime Minister whose name we shall not speak of.
The Russians really hated Liz Truss. It stems from that meeting she had with Lavrov.
Yeah.
Where he said...
She was Foreign Secretary, I think, was it?
Yes, she was Foreign Secretary, yeah, she wasn't Prime Minister yet. And he asked her, you know, what would you say about these two regions of Russia? And she said, well, I say Russia has no control. And they thought, oh, so you're just saying we can't have... So they sort of tricked her into sounding more aggressive than she was. And then they obviously stole her phone and hacked her phone and knew everything she texted for a while.
I think probably a lot of people won't mention her name, actually.
Yeah.
Liz Truss. I just did.
But she's meant to be in good form again, I've heard.
Well, because she was, I was told, and I'm sure you heard talking to the same people, she really was, Freddie, in a bad way.
Yeah,
humiliating, her exit, and whether you agree with her or not, it's impossible
Very
to feel a little bit of sympathy.
Very stressful.
As people say, on a human level.
Yeah.
On a human level. As if there's another level.
Yeah, although, of course, I feel sorry for the people whose mortgages went sky high because of the irresponsible budget.
So do I, on a selfish level.
Your mortgage too?
Not yet, but the renegotiation is fast approaching.
Oh,
yeah. Nikki, we've been talking about the cold winter. What the Mirror saying?
Yeah, this is a report about the coldest neighbourhoods in Britain, and most of them are where I'm from, actually, which is quite interesting because it is really cold up north. The 20 worst areas, the majority of them are in Bradford, in West Yorkshire. And what's depressing about this report is it's saying that basically some of the poorest insulated housing is the coldest, is the most expensive to heat. People can't afford the heating. They're living in really cold and damp conditions, which are obviously terrible. You know, it's very terrible for your health. And it just doesn't make any sense, does it? Why on earth, in the coldest parts of the country, do we have the most poorly insulated homes? You know, again, it's because of lack of investment in the north. And the other point that this report makes is that actually you're much more likely to live in one of these houses if you're of colour. So again, very depressing racial element to the story. Yeah.
The government, I don't know if it was in the budget, but very recently announced a big wad of cash for insulation.
Yep.
But they didn't say where it's going. Is it going to be in council properties, local authority properties, housing association, private homes? We're waiting for the detail.
Yeah, and this report kind of makes that point that we don't know what is going to happen to that money, and obviously it desperately needs to go to the right places. Yeah.
Yeah, they need it now.
Another foreign story from you, Freddie, about the situation with the zero COVID in China, but kind of relevant to all of us because, of course, the impact of all of these lockdowns on the supply chains.
Yes. Well, I'm just trying to show you what a serious person I am.
Yes, I'm enjoying it. A bit of foreign news.
But this is actually very good news because if you think about inflation, all the supply chain blocks, as you say, it all stems really from China's absolute adamance on zero COVID. Xi himself, very militant about zero COVID policies. And I think China is finally accepting the reality that there can be no such thing as zero COVID anymore, even in China.
But is that only because of these protests and that backlash they've been getting, or do you think they've suddenly had an epiphany on trade? I suspect it's because they've not been able to control their own people.
And wasn't it because of the World Cup? Because Chinese people watching World Cup on TV thinking...
Yes.
How are all these people able to mix?
Yes, they had to start cutting footage of the crowds, yeah. I think there may be an element of both. I mean, what the FT is suggesting here, which is obviously very focused on trade, is that the Chinese authorities have seen how badly damaged their trade budgets are, and they have decided to ditch the policy, which is good news for the world because we're just going to have to accept that COVID is a reality.
Although, I have to say, it was forcing us all to find alternatives to China and Chinese tat, and I do think a lot of us are unaware of how much Chinese produce we use, and it would be a good thing if we were able to...
Well, yes, and that might be why they're...
I check the labels, and seriously, if you pick up a tie and it says made in China, I'm not having it.
Yeah. Well,
right. A lot of our Christmas decorations.
Boycott.
So many things. So many things. I mean, nearly everything you have in your home at one point was, Chinese maybe 10 years ago. You have to make a real concerted effort to seek out products that are made in other countries. Even British-made products are quite hard to come by, really.
Yeah, I know.
OK, let's talk about Brussels sprouts. Much maligned. I absolutely love a Brussels sprout. What's the story in The Guardian about this, Nikki?
Me too. Well, this is actually some good news. I thought I would find one good news story in the papers today, and this is it. And it's saying that, I know everybody's worrying about the cost of Christmas dinner this year, but Aldi, Lidl and Sainsbury's are offering bags of sprouts, carrots, parsnips and potatoes for just 19p. So...
How big a bag?
I don't know. It doesn't say about the bag size. I'm quite interested. Yeah, I mean...
Run me through the veg again. Sprouts,
yes, sprouts, carrots, parsnips and potatoes for just 19p. And Swedes and cabbages will also be priced at 19p each. So that's going to cheer some people up and take the anxiety out of Christmas dinner, because I think it's so sad that people won't be having Christmas dinner because they're worried about the cost of it. But the only upshot, the negative upshot of that, of course, is money to the farmers. So the farmers are kind of worrying about what they're going to end up with, because if 19p is what we're paying, then they obviously haven't received very much.
I think all these children watching thinking, oh no, that means Mum's definitely
It means extra vegetables, extra vegetables. Well, roast potatoes though, come on, that's all right.
Yummy if you put some bacon in them.
Yeah. I love sprouts as well.
With bacon,
orange juice weirdly, some sort of Nigella thing.
And you don't have to boil them for 20 minutes.
No. Actually, the best way is to steam them. You can do that in the bag, in the microwave, and they come out perfectly.
But should we be buying them in bags?
Not for the planet.
For the planet, I'm just thinking.
We should be buying them loose, but I mean...
Yeah, I go to my greengrocers. He says virtuous.
You might not get the 19p deal, but yeah.
I don't think we'll get them for 19p.
That's the most virtuous I've ever...
I know.
I'm not
worrying about the planet.
No, you are virtuous, but you're not a virtue signaller.
Because that greengrocer's been there for decades.
Yeah.
And it really had a renaissance during the lockdown because people just went local.
Yes.
And he's been doing pretty good ever since. Yeah. And I always pay cash, and I'm always amazed when people go in and buy a carrot and they give them a card. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, because they have to pay a fee on that card transaction. So
for one carrot.
Mm-hmm.
Got some cash.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm a big into cash. Ask Isabel last time she carried cash.
I know.
She's like royalty.
Well, I find it harder and harder to keep using cash, but actually, I think we should. We don't want to have a cashless society.
No, we really don't. It's so bad for poorer people as well, and people that are unbanked.
Yeah.
So we have to have cash.
I think so.
OK, I'll try. Noted, everyone. Sorry.
Cash is king.
Freddie, cheer me up with some wine. This is in the Times.
This is more good news. Look, we've done so much good news going on. It's the story that everybody wants to be told at Christmas, which is it's not really your fault that you're it's your genetics.
Right.
Because there are certain people, I think I may be one of them, have genes that mean that they really can't stop themselves drinking a bit more.
Yes.
Although the report is keen to say that also that doesn't mean that you can't control your own destiny and not drink.
I believe alcoholism is very often passed down.
Yes, we have alcoholism in my family, and it is, so I have to really watch. I'm pregnant now, but when I am drinking, I have to really watch that because it feels like you have a different lever in your brain with alcohol, definitely.
But it must be horrible if you do have alcoholism in your family to worry that you cannot determine your...
Well, I suppose it's, you know, it's always, you have the genes and then it's environment triggering and like Freddie says, it is like some self-control. You just have to be more self-aware, I think, if you have it in your family.
My wife and I both have alcoholism all over the place. Our children are kind of... They're
already on the sauce.
They're already, you can see them being drawn to it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
In their genes.
Do you miss it, being pregnant, not being able to have a drink?
I did at the beginning, but now not. Do you know what? I've really benefited from having... It will be in total 9 months off, and it's made me reconsider how I drink, actually.
Right.
So I've really appreciated it.
Well, give motherhood a few months and you'll
be cracking open the wine.
I've never drunk so much as when my children were infants.
Hitting that gin bottle.
Anyway, have we got time for private schools? What we use? Very, very quick downer then, Nikki, in the mirror.
Oh, no, they shouldn't have put it at the end.
Tax.
Oh, well, maybe not. Just to say that, you know, that private schools get a tax break because they have charitable status. If this includes Eton, and if this was got rid of, we'd be looking at £10.6 million a year that could go into the public sector.
Yeah, but think of all the money that it saves.
Of course it's come from the Labour Party.
That's come from the Labour Party. You've got to also think about how much public schools put into bursaries, about 1.2 billion. They do lots of good work in communities.
Well, that's the condition of them having charitable status, isn't it? They have to benefit communities.
Yeah.
And there
Eton campus gets used heavily by all the local schools,
and the
pools,
Treasury
halls,
say,
assemblies.
The Treasury say if this tax went ahead, so many private schools would close, which would put another 90,000 kids in the state system.
Yeah.
Where are they going to be educated? Are Labour going to build new schools?
And it would stop the social mobility and stop the kind of the back
Eton
and forth.
will be fine, of course, because it is so well funded.
Eton will be fine.
It would be stuffed full of foreign students,
yes,
because it would be only really the Russians or the Chinese.
Which private schools are increasingly full of foreign students. So.
They always figure a way out to be...
Were you at Eton?
No.
You strike me as being...
No, I can't stand Eton.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Well, sorry.
Arch rivals. Were you at Harrow?
You can't let them know that you don't like them because they love
Because then they, prey upon it.
Do you not like Boris?
I did like Boris, yeah. I don't hate all of them.
Oh, OK.
There's a certain type of...
Where did you go to school, Freddie?
I went to school called Bradfield.
That's a very nice public school just down the road from Eton.
I wasn't claiming to be...
Oh, sorry, no, I know you weren't. I know you weren't. I was just turning on you.
Did you look enviously at the Eton boys?
There's probably a little bit of chippiness among other public school boys about Eton. Yeah, definitely.
Probably just laughed at the uniform.
Yes, although there were other ones that had much worse uniforms.
What did you have to wear at Bradfield? A funny uniform?
We had a gown, but that wasn't too bad.
Right.
Yeah.
No, not too bad.
We didn't have gowns.
That's why I'm so well adjusted.
No gowns at my Swindon comp. No, definitely not.
I got to shoot that gun at school, though.
Did you? There you go. That's definitely worth a charitable status then. Right, Freddie, great. Nikki Hodgson, really enjoyed going through the papers with you both. Thank you very much. Right, it's 8:48. Let's remind you of today's top stories.
So the first 3 episodes of the long-awaited Duke and Duchess of Sussex new docu-series have been released this morning. Asked why they chose to film the series, the couple both say they want to challenge what they believe has been misinformation about why they stood down as royal. Prince Harry said he was concerned for the safety of his family and felt it was his duty to uncover the bribery that happens with our media. Really? We'll bring you more on this throughout the day on GB News.
Unions are calling on the government to engage in meaningful talks amid the wave of public sector strikes sweeping across the UK. Border Force staff have become the latest workers to announce industrial action over Christmas, with postal workers, nurses and paramedics planning to strike in the coming weeks.
And motorists are being warned of dangerous driving conditions as that cold snap hits the UK. Icy conditions may result in some slips and falls, and there could be icy patches on untreated roads, pavement and cycle paths. The RAC are telling drivers, check your tyres and don't forget to carry a blanket in case you break down.
Now, today is Save the Children's Christmas Jumper Day. Nobody told us.
No.
We forgot ours, but we will put them on later, absolutely, because people who wear their best festive knit today will be donating to a really good cause.
Yes, it's an initiative that was started a decade ago and it's raised over £30 million and it helps transform the lives of children around the world. This year, the British government has agreed to double every donation up to the amount of £2 million.
Well, we can speak to Gemma Sharrington, who's head of fundraising at Save the Children. Good morning to you. Oh, I like your Christmas jumper. It's got a sort of sparkly, tinsely collar there. Listen, this has been going for 10 years now, and people will be wearing them up and down the country.
Yeah, we've got millions of people participating up and down the country. And don't worry if you've forgotten to wear your jumper today, because we're encouraging people to upcycle, recycle, borrow. You could pop into a Save the Children's shop and buy one. So you'll see that I'm wearing a lovely jumper that was designed by our ambassador, Mylene Klass, but I've added my own fancy collar to it just to give it a bit more pep.
And do you find people are happy to donate?
Yeah, I think what's amazing is that the whole essence of the day is for people to put on their jumpers, have fun together, whether it's with colleagues, classmates, your friends, your family. And it's about donating as much as you can. So it's not about, trying to give hundreds of pounds or tens of pounds. It's whatever you can. And it's about the participation that counts. And we want everyone to be able to get involved. We don't want this to be excluding anyone. So it is about what's right for you.
You must have seen one or two Christmas jumpers that are, frankly, a bit of a fright.
Yes, absolutely. Especially on the homemade ones. I've got to say, some people are very creative. I've seen toilet rolls stuck to jumpers. I've seen taxidermy stuck to jumpers. People do get very creative, and sometimes the results are quite frightful, I've got to say, but amazing, and all in a good cause for children in the UK and around the world.
You see, when I was growing up, Christmas jumpers were a bit of a joke. You would only wear it if you got given one as a gift by a distant granny or auntie, and they were always itchy and you hated them. But everyone loves a Christmas jumper now. You've got some big names involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've become a bit of an expression of your personality. You have to think about what you're wearing in your Christmas jumper now, because people will perceive something of you. Are you like a Nordic knit classic person? Are you, someone who likes a bit of cheesy tinsel? And we've got some of our amazing ambassadors who are bringing their own flavours to the day. You can see we've got Ollie Murs involved there, Mylene Klass, and we've got ambassadors around the whole country. And as I said, millions of people also taking part. And we're encouraging everyone to express themselves through their jumper. But a real theme this year of you don't have to buy new, you can upcycle, you can recycle, swap, share, buy at a charity shop, because we don't want people going out and spending lots of money on new jumpers.
That's an important point, yeah.
You've also got some good tips, I think, on unusual gifts. If people are planning to do Secret Santa gifts, and how you can do it quite economically.
Yeah, we did a survey actually amongst sort of adults over 18 in the UK, and there were some incredible gifts in there, and these were the most unusual gifts people had received. So it was things like a tin of tuna, a stuffed squirrel, a carrot. So, I mean, if you're going to go sort of, you're going to try and be economical this year, I think also think about what people might like. And the things people were least looking forward to receiving this year were socks, soap, alcohol, all the classics. When you don't know what to get someone, that's what you get them.
What is a grow your own girlfriend? Because somebody donated that. What is that?
And a frog.
I mean, a grow your own girlfriend, I feel like I can't comment on that. I'm not sure about that one.
Oh, what a shame. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, I don't know. 3D printer.
Yeah,
what is
grow
it?
your own boyfriend.
Yeah, no idea how that works.
Yeah.
Well, listen, on that note, we wish you every success. I'm sure it will be a huge hit. It always is. This is the 11th year, isn't it? And it's all for Save the Children, a really worthy cause, especially at Christmas. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. And that was, and I'm just trying to find your name, I'm terribly sorry, Gemma Sherrington, Director of Fundraising and
I'd love to
Marketing.
donate a tacky Christmas jumper to the Appeal, but I don't have one.
You don't own one?
I've never
My
even liked
husband's
them.
got loads. And he
Into
just
the cupboard.
brings them out every year, and I retch and silence,
what do the children
long
think?
suffering.
Oh, Dad, what are you
Well,
wearing?
no, now he came back from the charity shop the other day with one for our son, and I always dress my son in a lovely shirt at Christmas, but now he's got a wretched Christmas jumper. But this is for charity, so it's different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway.
Now, look, after the break, our royal reporter is going to be giving his reaction, and we can't wait.
I'll just give you a quick line.
Go
Like
on.
the duty and service, I feel as though being part of this family, it's my duty to uncover the exploitation and bribery that happens within our media. It's war. We'll have all the details in a minute.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have issued yellow weather warnings covering ice and across northern Scotland some snow for the next couple of days. Because it's from the north, if you follow the isobars, that's where our air is coming from, northerly winds. meaning a frosty start for the vast majority this morning. And say potentially a slippery start as well. Wherever we've got any showers with that cold air and the cold ground, it could be icy parts of Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England and eastern England too. And snow showers still coming in across northern Scotland. For many, it's a sunny day today, but it will be cold. And later on, a bit more cloud coming into southeast Scotland, northeast England. That is going to bring more in the way of wet weather, a wintry mix with some snow likely, especially over hills. Temperatures 2 or 3 for the vast majority at best. For much of the day, we're going to be struggling around or below freezing. Just that little area of wet weather coming into northeast England this evening needs to be watched, could provide a covering of snow. Certainly there'll be some over the North York moors. And again, wherever we've got any kind of shower, be it rain, sleet or snow, it could turn icy, and certainly more snow showers continuing through the night across northern Scotland. Again, a frosty one tonight, temperatures down to -2, -3, -4, even in towns and cities, and lower in rural spots. Friday, again, potentially icy where we've got some showers. The showers over West Wales, perhaps southwest England, Northern Ireland, some snow here over the hills. The wind's a bit lighter perhaps on Friday, but still strong enough to blow more snow showers over northern Scotland. Again, for the vast majority, tomorrow will just be crisp, sunny and cold, with temperatures struggling to get much above 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. Doesn't get any warmer through the weekend. It stays cold, frosty, further wintry showers, therefore a continued ice risk. Sunny spells, but also some freezing fog. Keep up to date with those warnings on the Met Office website.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Well, Harry and Meghan's Netflix series, it's finally launched this morning, and of course it's generating great controversy.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock on Thursday, the 8th of December. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Andrew. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Yes, it's the first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new series. They've dropped on Netflix. Previous trailers promised the inside story of how the Sussex stepped away from their royal duties, with Harry referring to what he calls a dirty game.
In other news, Border Force staff at major airports, including Heathrow, have announced that they'll strike from the 23rd of December. The walkouts threaten Christmas holidays, with airports reportedly being told to cancel 30% of flights on strike days. The Education Secretary told us the government will work with the Army to respond to the strikes.
This was our time to see family and friends. We don't get those times very often, so it's very disappointing. But of course, we'll do our best working with the military to mitigate the impacts.
And the first coal mine in the UK in decades has been approved. The government says the decision is consistent with its policies on cutting carbon emissions, but of course environmental campaigners say it's going to undermine climate targets.
And the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock has announced that he'll not be standing in the next general election. It follows comments from members of his local party that he wasn't fit to represent them after appearing on I'm a Celebrity.
We want to hear from you, so do get in touch the usual way via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk and let us know where you're watching or where you're listening from.
Well, it is our top story this morning. The first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan's new Netflix series dropped just an hour ago on Netflix amid continued controversy.
Well, the trailers promised to reveal a war against Meghan and show the true story of why they stepped back from their royal duties.
The docu-series forms part of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's £88 million deal with Netflix. Well, joining us now in the studio are former Royal Butler Grant Harold and former Liberal Democrat Minister and Royal Author Norman Baker. Good morning to both of you. First of all, to you, Grant, I know that you live on the Highgrove estate still, so very much in tune with the royal family. We're told, or if the papers are correct, that they are very much bracing themselves to rebut any allegations. How will this be going down in royal circles?
It's the worst timing, isn't it? I mean, with recent events, with losing the Queen, it's been a difficult time for the royal family. And as I was just saying, with Christmas just around the corner, when the royal family get together, suddenly here we've got this drop in today, which just seems strange that they've decided to do it right now. I think Andrew was saying it's 3 months since the Queen...
To the day.
Since the Queen died. So I don't understand the timing of this. And I think for the royal family, it's going to be really difficult because I think they said they're not going to watch it, but you can rest assured that there'll be people within their teams that will watch it. And obviously that's when they'll have to, if they want, that's when they'll come back with... I'm sure this week could get really tricky because this week lawyers could get involved as well. You know, if there is serious allegations there.
Go on.
I was going to say, Harry is hurting his father and his brother. You worked with this family close up. What sort of relationship did you observe between Harry and William and the King?
Wonderful relationship. This is what I find so puzzling, is that, you know, with what's going on, it doesn't really make sense because he was very close to his father and his brother. I mean, they were his brother, the now Prince of Wales. They got on so well. They were best friends. They used to joke and laugh a lot, and you know, just like any brothers or any best friends. And their father, you know, he went out his way on many occasions just to be a father. And that's why I couldn't understand when I think a few years ago he said that he didn't really have a fantastic upbringing. Of course, losing his mother, of course, that's devastating. But I think it's safe to say that the King did everything to try to make it as normal upbringing for them from that point onwards. So that's why I was a bit confused why he said that, you know, he had a different relationship with them, because I didn't see that.
Yeah, well, I'm reading details of it now. It says episode 1 opened with words written in white on a black background, which said, "This is the first-hand account of Harry and Meghan's story told with never-before-seen personal archive. All interviews were completed by August 2022. Now, we know that on the 8th of September, Her Majesty the Queen died, so this was before the death of Her Majesty.
Yes.
We also know that as part of the Mexit deal, as it's described, was that they wouldn't trash her legacy, that they wouldn't talk badly about the royal family. Do you think, given that these interviews then were conducted before she died and that promise that they made, will they keep to that, do you think?
It's interesting. I did watch a little bit of it just before we came on, and so that was one of the things I did notice, was it was very clear that they're saying this has been done before, obviously, the Queen's death. So they're making that clear. As far as what we're going to say, you know, what's going to come out, it's hard to say what they're going to do, because, you know, the fact they're making it clear that this was done before, they could within reason, they could say anything, couldn't they, really? And they're not going to, obviously, from that point onwards, they're not going to say anything further. Well, who knows? You never know. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it?
And the approach has always been, in the royal family, never complain, never explain. But
yes.
if allegations, specific allegations of racism and bullying are made, hasn't somebody got to speak out? Because this is going worldwide, this Netflix documentary.
I mean, I read some of the Queen only ever, I think twice, ever had legal battles. You know, as you said, that was her thing, never complain, never explain, just got on with it. Well, this is very different. This could be really damaging. This can change people's perception. You know, I remember when I worked for the Royal Household, that's what they used to kind of say to us, that, you know, everything you say and do, even when you leave, can influence or can change people's perception. That's from a staff member's point of view. So can you imagine from an actual member of the royal family, from their point of view?
Yeah. Well, look, we are going to go to the Royal Reaction Room, I'm told, very soon, and hear some clips from that documentary, which dropped just over an hour ago. But in the meantime, Norman, some thoughts from you. I mean, look, a lot of people wanted to embrace Meghan into the royal family, but hold her personally responsible for the change in everything in Prince Harry. I mean, is she being unfairly attacked? The incident that happened at Buckingham Palace last week with Lady Hussey goes to vindicate her a little bit, doesn't it? I think that there are some sort of old-fashioned racist views within the royal household at the very worst.
I think there are some old-fashioned views in the royal household which need to be updated, and if Charles has got any sense, he will update the monarchy quite quickly, in my view, because it is kind of fossilised in the past to a large degree. None of that excuses, by the way, the kind of self-indulgence I think we're seeing from Harry and Meghan now. And both sides will suffer from this. Harry and Meghan will come out of this badly, in my view, but so will the royal family. Because when you have a civil war, and let me say, I know there's some political parties, no side ever wins. Both sides will lose in the situation. And the reality is, why are they doing this? 88 million was the figure you gave, I think, a moment ago.
Yeah.
88 million. Netflix want a pound of flesh for 88 million. And, of course, the knowledge that Harry and Meghan have got stops at a particular point when they leave the royal family. So it's becoming more and more historical, more and more out of date in a sense. And they have to become more and more lurid in their responses in order to generate the headlines. So I think this is deeply regrettable in many ways. And I think it's going to do neither side any good. I mean, they quote Elton John, I think, in this programme.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I have to say to Harry, if he wants an Elton John song, it's not Burning the Jets, which he talks about. It's Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me.
Yeah. The first episode has also featured historian David Olagosa and writer and broadcaster Afia Hirsch, who's been describing the UK's history of slavery. But listen, let's talk now to our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who is watching all of it for us, so we don't have to, sparing us, one might say. Cameron, listen, what are the big headlines here? We're seeing lots of sort of fighting talk, if you like. What more can you tell us?
Well, Isabel, welcome back to GB News' Royal Reaction Room, where we are watching it live on this cinema screen here, and we're bringing you all the latest reaction and analysis to what Harry and Meghan claim in this Netflix documentary series. The first thing to point out, I think Grant Harold actually mentioned this, is that right at the start there was a disclaimer saying every interview it was conducted before August 2022, a month before Her Majesty the Queen passed away. And of course today is 3 months to the day that the late Queen Elizabeth II passed away, so the timing is quite significant here. Episode 1 very much focused on how Harry and Meghan met, but also Harry's relationship with the media, and he talks at length really about his relationship with the media from when he was a baby right up until present day. But one moment which particularly stood out for me was how the media affected his romantic relationship. So let's take a look at what Prince Harry said.
every relationship that I had, within a matter of weeks or months, was splattered all over the newspapers, and that person's family harassed and their lives turned upside down.
Well, I'm joined by royal historian Rafe Hadel-Mankiw, who's been watching the Netflix documentary alongside me. Rafe, first of all, Harry's relationship with the media has, let's be frank, pretty turbulent over the years, hasn't it? What was your kind of takeaway from episode 1?
Well, again, I think it's very much a question of this man not having come to terms with the fact that there's a price for being a prince, and the price is, of course, to have media examining every aspect of your life. You know, you do have a pampered lifestyle, you get a great deal of privilege, and unfortunately with that comes the burden of media intrusion. But a lot of people would say they wouldn't mind that lifestyle, given that the media intrusion isn't a great deal, really.
Of course, when he was a boy, being part of the royal family, he lost his mother very early on, and he actually spoke about how he basically had to have two sides of his personality: his personal side as a grieving boy who has just lost his mother, and of course the royal side. So let's take a listen to what he said.
When my mum died, we had two hats to wear. One was two grieving sons wanting to cry, grieve, and process that grief because of losing our mum. And two was the royal hat, show no emotion, get out there, meet the people, shake the hand.
Diana's death, the public had huge sympathy for Princes William and Harry. I mean, what do you think the difference is now?
Well, it's interesting, actually. In this first episode, he said that he had to try to deal with the loss of his mother without much help or guidance. Those are the words that he used. And I think that may raise some eyebrows in the royal household, because certainly his father took great pains to ensure that they had as much help and guidance as they could have. Look, everyone's heart went out to those two boys back in 1997, and there's been so much goodwill to Prince Harry over the last 2 decades. But we're now talking about 25 years later, and this man is an adult. You know, everybody has had tragedy in their life, and it's time for some people to move on. And I think it just goes to the vacuous nature, perhaps, of their Californian lifestyle, that they're still hanging on to these events from 25 years ago.
Indeed, Rafe. Now, thank you very much for speaking to me. We are live here in the Royal Reaction Room, GB News' Royal Reaction Room, all day, bringing you the latest analysis from Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex's Netflix documentary series. But for now, Isabel and Andrew, back to you.
OK, you've got 2 more episodes to get through, Cameron. Enjoy. Thank you very much indeed for that analysis. Look, I want to ask Norman Baker about all of this, because we heard there, in Harry's own words, reliving the experiences. Gosh, there was so much public sympathy. Of course, it was tragic to lose his mother. But 2 boys lost their mother in exactly the same way. But only one of them is choosing to speak out about not having got the support that they needed. And Prince William doesn't seem to feel the need to do this.
No, and Rafe was right to say that we've all got tragedy in our lives. As a matter of fact, I lost my dad at the age of 8. So we all have these sorts of things going on. But what surprises me is, or appalls me in some ways, is that Harry says he wants to leave the royal family. Fair enough, if you can do that, I think you should be allowed to do that, and disappear into the general population. But he doesn't do that. He says he wants privacy, but he cultivates the media at every single opportunity as we go on. And he seems to think the media is a kind of free PR machine for him, where it will publish photographs of him and his children that he selects and not do their job of investigating anything which is untoward. For example, his hypocrisy, as I would see it, in terms of talking about climate change and taking private jets everywhere. You know, that's a legitimate story. So you can either be outside the system and be a member of the public, or you can be inside and be subject to media scrutiny. But the media is not a free PR machine that you seem to think it is.
I was going to ask, what do you think about him using his mother in this way? I mean, 25 years ago, you could almost argue he's monetising the memory of his mother, because she still has a huge following around the world. And some people still think, bizarrely, in my view, that she was bumped off by the royal family.
You're quite right. This is the thing. I think it is kind of... I don't like saying using it, but I mean, we've all lost loved ones, and I think it's safe to say years later we don't keep bringing them up, other than just to remember them, but we don't use them in any kind of way. I'm not saying that's what he's doing, but he's certainly talking, which is obviously bringing up memories and doing comparisons, which I think is just... It's not a good idea, because all I keep thinking is that he's still a member of the royal family, even though he's not a working member. His father is the king. He's still going to have times he's going to be with his father. How awkward is that going to be? That's what I'm wondering. How awkward is it going to be
when the coronation?
I would imagine he'll get invited, but then what message does that now give? Because say as more information comes out, and say it is more damaging, if he is there, then that's almost like the royal family kind of not support him, but they're allowing him to say it and nothing's happening. So I think this could forever damage the relationship. This could be the last door that gets closed.
I'm conscious that we haven't spoken to anyone this morning who supports them, and I feel that I have to ask the question. I suppose that these allegations that certainly in the Oprah interview, I don't know if they've repeated them in the documentary yet. These allegations that they made about racism. Does Meghan have a point? We saw what happened last week at Buckingham Palace. Even the palace said that they weren't tolerating that, and Lady Hussey was thrown out after her however many years of service. Is there structural racism within the monarchy? Do they have a racism problem, as Meghan alleges?
I mean, I've got to be honest, I haven't witnessed it myself. I think it'd be wrong of me to say that there's not racism in organisations. I mean, I've got many friends that talk about in different work environments where there's some shape of race issues. So it's possible, but we don't know. Remember, the palace said they were going to do an investigation into that. We'll never know the results of that because that'll be dealt with privately. I'm sure they'll get the feedback on it, but it's a really tricky one because that's quite a strong allegation.
She we understand is going to address this allegation that she bullied staff, and some of the staff allegedly bullied were very senior, and they've all had to sign non-disclosure agreements. And one of them was quoted in the Times yesterday, straining at the leash for somebody in the palace to speak out about this because this person said she's lying.
That's the tricky part is that there's people that know that they're lying and they want to speak out, but because of confidentiality, they can't, and that's the tricky part. The thing is, I've watched it, and there's bits of it that with the original documentary, the program they did with Oprah, and don't get me wrong, there was one or two things that they said that I related to. I mean, at one point he said that his father in the royal family, it's a full-time job. They're basically they've got these schedules and they have to go through these schedules, and if Meghan says she wanted to invite friends over or do something, it can't, the schedules are there, the programme's there, and it's 6 months in advance, so they can't just suddenly go, oh, do you know what, I'm going to change that. And so I think when they said that, that everything's kind of orchestrated or done a certain way, that's true. But then, as I say, then there's other bits that they said, for example, when he said he didn't go on with his father or had a tricky relationship, that I didn't witness that. So that's what was different for me as a former member of staff watching it. And bits I thought, OK, I can understand that. And then other bits that just didn't make sense.
It's called having a full-time job.
Yeah,
I mean, didn't she work on a series of Suits? Didn't she have times in her life where she was on set and couldn't arguably have friends whenever she wanted? I mean, it does smack a little bit of being overprivileged and a bit spoiled.
Yes, can I make a sort of defence as you're inviting a defence of some sort? Which is, I think there is some justification in the allegation that it's difficult for feisty women to be accepted without question in the royal family. We saw back in the day of Diana, when she tried to be independent, talking about landmines and so on, that didn't go down very well. She was told to be an adjunct to Charles and not say very much. Fergie had a similar situation when she showed a personality as well. So I think, the idea of an American woman coming in with their own ideas, and quite intelligent women actually, coming in and wanting to do something which was out of the ordinary, was not well received or well handled by the palace. So I think there is an issue about feisty women, actually.
They've got a couple of feisty women of their own. Princess Anne's pretty feisty.
Yes, a lot of people would say the Queen was a wonderful feminist and role model, but not feisty, perhaps. But anyway, we could discuss this all day long, and doubtless we will for weeks and months, because after this, there's a book coming out. But for now, Norman Baker, Grant Harold, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
And after the break, we're going to speak to the actor and comedian John Thompson. He's preparing to take to the panto stage in Aladdin.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
We're just discussing pantomime in the
Yes.
book. We're both quite big fans. I love it from my point of view because it's got something for everyone. The innuendo for the parents and the colour and the craziness for the children. You're
He's
off.
behind you.
I know, terrifying. Lots of analogies with what's going on in the Royals at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're off to Panto in a little while.
Tuesday at the Palladium.
Oh, who's that, Julian?
Julian Clary. Can't remember which panto it is. I think it might be Aladdin. Can't remember.
Oh, well, speaking of Aladdin.
Yes.
Of course, it is that long recognised British institution, Christmas tradition, albeit a little bit eccentric. And up and down the land, theatres are turning into panto land over the Christmas period.
And this morning we're joined by none other than John Thompson, who's set to take to the stage, starring in the Derby Arena's production of Aladdin. He is the baddie, Ebenezer.
Good morning. Oh, I don't know if we can hear you or not. We are thrilled to be speaking to the baddie from Panto because they always get the best roles. Can you hear us? Oh, we'll see if we can establish that. Because last week we spoke to Brendan Cole, who was starring as the baddie in Panto in Aberdeen.
I think
and
he's
he was
back.
saying he loved the thrill of playing the bad guy. Oh, John Thompson, I'm hoping we can speak to you now. You're the bad guy.
I am the baddie. I'm Ebenezer in Aladdin.
Does it come naturally?
Being bad? No, not really. I tend to play friendly dads and kind people, so I relish playing the villain. It steps out of my comfort zone.
And it's a pretty punishing schedule, John, isn't it? How many performances are you doing?
Oh my God, I don't even want to think. I'm having to take it a day at a time because we finished the tech dress last night at 10:30. And then we started at 10. So, and then I got in at 11. I woke up at 7:15 this morning. Oh, there we are rehearsing. To dye my beard, as you can see from there, to dye my beard black. And we're back in at 10 for notes, and we've got another dress today. So it's been full on. But because it's an arena and an actual velodrome, you've got to go big or go home. So it's got absolutely everything in it. As a traditional panto goes, this ticks absolutely every box.
And why is it, John, that panto is so quintessentially British and still so popular?
I just think audience interaction. I think it's Christmas. People want to have a good time, and you know, if you go to a normal play or a musical, you can't really get involved. So I think people's spirits are up and the excitement's there for Christmas. So the idea of being able to shout out, join in, kids brought on the stage for the song sheets, you know, the ghost gag, like you said before, behind you. So I think it's the whole immersive, interactive experience that everyone relishes, as opposed to just going to watch a play.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, nobody takes it too seriously. I suppose the more things that go wrong, the better as well. But I went to see Panto last year, and I thought at the end of that, I can't believe they've got to do that all over again today.
I have, yeah. I have. I've got notes at 10, and then at 2, we've got another dress rehearsal. Yeah. So I'm a bit fried at the moment, but, you know, it keeps the ball from the door.
Exactly.
I'm not as young as I used to be, I've realised. My last panto was 6 years ago, and that was at the Opera House in Manchester, and I played Ebenezer.
Oh, well, you've done it before. Well, look, if people want to see you, you're at the Derby Arena playing Ebenezer in Aladdin from the 9th of December until the 31st of December. Thank you very much indeed for squeezing us in, because it sounds like you've got a pretty punishing schedule there.
Good luck, John. And you know what? He is behind you right now.
Ah! Have a lovely Christmas. Good luck with it all. That's it from us. It's been a really nice show, hasn't it?
Very nice. Always a nice show when I'm working with you, Isabel.
Well, yeah.
And of course, I'm back tomorrow.
You've got your show
at
tomorrow, 12 till 2.
People have got to tune in.
Yeah, people are tuning in. Lots of them. We're off tomorrow, though. Well, in the morning, as I said, you're on at that time. Stephen and Anne back in the morning from 6. And up next, it's Tom Harwood with The Briefing.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not